are recording again.
Well, good morning. Let me try that again. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining the reconvened Seattle City Council Select Budget Committee. Today is Tuesday, November 14th, 2023, and the time is 2:01 p.m. The Select Budget Committee will come back to order. I'm Teresa Mosqueda, Chair of the Select Budget Committee. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Herbold.
Here.
Council President Juarez.
Here.
Councilmember Lewis.
Present.
Councilmember Morales.
Here.
Councilmember Nelson.
Present.
Councilmember Peterson.
Here.
Councilmember Sawant.
Present.
Councilmember Strauss.
Present.
Chair Mosqueda.
Present.
9 present.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Colleagues, thanks again for reconvening this afternoon. We will spend the rest of our time this Tuesday afternoon focused on agenda item number 27. I want to offer some opening comments first before putting the base budget in front of us to then consider the various amendments to the bill that have been grouped into Group A, consent agenda, and to Group B, individual votes. I want to remind folks of all the work that we've done over the last 6 to 8 weeks. We have put forward a budget that I believe focuses 2024 investments on the core themes of equity, transparency, and sustainability. We will continue the discussion about transparency and equity, sustainability tomorrow by looking at some longer-term budget bills that help to ensure greater transparency and opportunity for community engagement and collegiality between the executive and the legislative branch. We've also maintained an investment in 2024 by focusing the city's resources on investing in our most vulnerable, by rejecting austerity and ensuring that we're making good on the commitments that we have put forward in front of us in this biennial budget. And we've continued the investments in community to ensure that programs and positions are directly providing services to our community, that we're recovering in a more equitable way, and that we're thinking about the city of the future. The amendments that we'll discuss today, again, are grouped together. Group A reflects amendments that I believe are complementary and in alignment with the values and the principles that I put into the chair's balancing packet. I believe that the amendments in Group A reflect our intent to maintain and build upon the 2023-2024 adopted biennial budget. I believe that we, through these amendments, are able to prioritize keeping our community cared for and housed, resilient and connected, and healthy and safe. Again, I want to highlight the summary document that really includes all of your incredible work that we put into the balancing package originally, and we will be updating this document to include any additional amendments that are included today. We put that document out to show members of the community the ways that we have invested in a housed and cared for Seattle in a connected and resilient community, and investing in health and safety, community investments, and upstream solutions. I want to highlight a few of the amendments that collectively we put together that provide additional support for our community and help to ensure that we have invested in robust ways to create a more equitable economy and healthy community in the ongoing pandemic and the ongoing need to create greater stability and address income inequality throughout Seattle. In this package, we've realigned funding streams to protect the targeted Jumpstart investments that's codified by statute by restoring nearly $20 million in Jumpstart changes that had been proposed in the original proposed budget as transmitted by the executive. This includes restoring $5 million back into affordable housing, yielding a historic investment of $600 million over the biennium into affordable housing. This has been made largely possible due to the ongoing support and revenue created by Jumpstart Progressive Payroll Tax. The Jumpstart restorations also included $2 million back to economic resilience. This is the general category that's all about supporting small business, art and culture, community activation. This economic resilience category builds investments that we have put together in the past years for workforce training to really create opportunity for economic stability as we grow small businesses and support art and culture and street activation. Let's all about community cohesion in that category. The adherence to the spend plan means that the budgeted allocation for 2024 now align with the codified categories as codified in the Jumpstart Spend Plan: affordable housing, Green New Deal, economic resilience, and equitable development. This was also made largely possible because we were able to build back funding that then became available in the mid-October revenue forecast projections, and we captured all of those Jumpstart dollars and put them directly back into Jumpstart expenses, as well as secured additional funding, small amount, but additional funding for the Jumpstart reserves as well. This package as well invests in millions into public safety and community health through early intervention and upstream solutions that create greater self-determination and economic stability, help address the rising trauma, stress, isolation, depression, much of which we've talked about in our morning session. This is accomplished through new investments, and I want to call out our council members who have included amendments in the balancing package to help to accomplish this goal. For example, thanks to Councilmember Morales, and I was honored to be a partner with Councilmember Morales in supporting the Consejo Counseling investment for support for the Seattle's only Latinx-focused domestic violence wraparound victim services organization. This is accomplished through the investments that we've expanded through the El Centro de la Raza after-school programming, which is not just about education, but about community well-being and family connectedness to other programs and services that create stability for families. This is accomplished through Council President Juarez's investment in ongoing funding for youth programming tailored to our Native youth. It's accomplished through Councilmember Strauss's investments through community safety ambassadors, for Councilmember Herbold and my support as well for the mental health support for youth violence prevention workers, and Councilmember Lewis's investment in pre-filing diversion programming. Councilmember Herbold has lifted up a number of times the investments that we've made in this budget in Harborview, bedside, gun violence interruption strategies. And again, Councilmember Morales thinking about ways that we invest in community health means directly cleaning our community, and the directive to not only clean downtown, but through Councilmember Morales's amendment, cleaning as well as investing in the Chinatown International District. Colleagues, we've restored programs for funding for food through amendments that support senior meals and the emergency food and food banks, thanks to Councilmember Strauss and Morales. We're both boosting our support for trees. This includes amendments to support tree canopy and develop the citywide outreach and education strategy that I'm supporting from Councilmember Peterson. We've boosted and increased our enforcement and monitoring and reporting to the city's updated tree protections, thanks to Councilmember Peterson and Strauss. And we've invested in public space activation to include funding for public space that includes Capitol Hill, Rainier Beach, and Mount Baker, thanks to Councilmember Morales. I'm excited to have joined in this effort as well as we think about how we create greater, vibrant, accessible, safe, and healthy spaces that promote small businesses and encourage pedestrianization of areas. I'm very excited that we've continued this ongoing commitment to see how Capitol Hill can be one of those areas to provide opportunity for social cohesion, getting out of cars, increasing patronization of local small businesses, and enjoyment of restaurants, as well as increased recreation in the area. Hopefully, that finally gets us across the finish line in developing the plans for that specific neighborhood. And finally, colleagues, I'm very excited that we have advanced funding to enable concepts that move forward the implementation of long desired investments in the Inner Bay area, supporting BIPOC artists and wayfinding strategies in Inner Bay, thanks to Council President Juarez for investing in community activation near new light rail stations in Inner Bay. We've also made sure that we are creating an opportunity for closing funding gap streams, avoiding broader cuts to safe streets and infrastructure projects, as I mentioned earlier, by closing the $10 million potential hole in the October revenue forecast that could have had dramatic impact on infrastructure and transportation projects. We have fully closed that gap in the balancing package. The amendments that you have in front of us now in new amendments in Group A I think complement many of the discussions that we've had over the last 2 months. I'm very excited that we'll have conversations here in a moment about including additional culturally specific domestic violence services, that we will have more conversations about how to support community-based survivor support, that we're going to have an opportunity to talk about how we invest in behavioral health service and case management and other operating costs necessary for tiny house villages, that we'll have a chance to talk about additional ways to support meal programs and food support, given the rising cost of food, the rising inflation, and the ongoing needs that we see even as COVID relief dollars from our federal government disappear. We'll have much more to say about this, but wanted to make sure that folks know that this is a tremendous opportunity for us to lift up the community that has been calling for many of these investments. As we summarize what is included in Group A, a reminder, you do not have to pull out a specific amendment to comment on it. I hope that we will have a number of people who will comment on the HSD or the human service provider wage increases, and I want to point to the letter, the memo that is included as an attachment on today's agenda. And when we get to those items, I will make sure to lift up the clarification statement that I'm offering as a colloquy in this form for future reference, and a point of historical reference as well. Hopefully you will continue to point back to this agenda and today's meeting as a way to clarify and uplift the intent behind those human service provider wages. So we'll have more to say on that. At this point, Madam Clerk, I don't believe we need to read anything else in the record, and am I able to turn it over to central staff to provide an overview of item number 27 before I move the legislation?
Please do, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Colleagues, we have the legislation in front of us, as I noted. We're going to have Group A and Group B. And I'm just going to move the legislation so that it is in front of us for the purpose of discussion. Sound good, Ally? Okay, I can't see. I'll take that as a yes. I move the committee recommend passage of Council Bill 120708 for the purposes of discussion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you so much. It has been moved and seconded, and I will turn it over to central staff to walk us through the process. Group A again has 108 items in it, and I'll let central staff describe it before we consider moving forward.
Thank you, Chair Mosqueda. So as I described before the break, we will take up the amendments to item 27 on the agenda, the 2024 budget adoption ordinance, in two groups. Group A has 108 items and will be voted on as a group, and individual items can be pulled for individual consideration, and Group B will be discussed all individually. And the order will go first. We will describe Group A after council member removes any items. Items that are removed from Group A will be taken after the vote on all the items remaining in the group, and then we'll take up Group B. And so with that, I'll just briefly describe Group A and then turn it back over to the chair. So Group A has 108 items. It is council member or Chair Mosqueda just described or highlighted some of the items in it. I'll just note it affects the budgets of about 25 departments across the city. It shows the detailed work that the council has engaged in over the last 6 or 7 weeks to really scrutinize the budget proposal and identify areas for changes. And so these 108 amendments make up amendments that were first described in the chair's balancing package on October 20th, as well as amendments to that package that were presented on the 27th, and also incorporates some technical changes as identified by staff. And I believe there are items in this group sponsored by all of the council members, and like I said, affecting 25 departments. There are about 44 department chapters in the budget book, and so changes across the city's budget. Turn it back to the chair.
Thank you so much. Before we consider removing any items from Group A, I just again want to reiterate, you are encouraged to speak to items that you would like to see in there. There is an opportunity for us to spend time so each council member gets a chance to summarize the items that they've included, that we have included in Group A. Again, Group A includes items from the original balancing package and additional items that you have suggested on October 27th. Any items that we felt were very complementary to the original concepts that were included in the base budget, we have included those in the consent package. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to be supporting some of the items in Group B, but just wanted to offer for you the chance to speak to all of those, and remember that this is both the initial balancing package and includes many of the items that you have brought forward from the October 27th meeting. At this time, council members, I would encourage you, if you'd like to make some comments on Group A, you are welcome to do that. And if you are interested in removing any item from the consent package, please make sure to note that, and I will be taking notes on my end. Who would like to go first? I'm gonna take the council president. Council president, anything you'd like to say? I see you off mute there.
Oh, I'm off mute too, and for once, I'm paying attention. Yes, no, I'm good. I'm excited, so I'm ready to do this.
All right, that sounds like a resounding endorsement for Group A. Any additional comments? Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you. I wish to pull, just a second, I'm looking, I wish to pull two items, item 31 and 34. The first is HSD 001A2 and the second is HSD 805A2.
Okay, that's item number 31 and 34, HSD 001A2, and item 34 is 805A2 from Councilmember Nelson. Any additional comments?
Are you asking me or are you asking other people?
Anybody, if they would like to
Okay.
weigh in on anything that they see in the Group A there, or if there's any additional items that folks would like to see removed. Well, why don't we start with that last question first, and then we'll go to comments. Any other council member has a desire to remove any item from the consent package? Okay, well, we will move on over to comments. Are there other colleagues who would like to make comments on any items that they currently see in Group A, which includes the full list of 108 minus item number 31 and number 34? Any additional comments folks would like to make? Shy bunch. It's okay. I summarized a lot of what was included, but I didn't hit every council member. So if you would like to add anything else. Okay. I'm not seeing any additional council members that would like to add anything else at this point. Perhaps you're saving your comments for next Monday's final passage. Yeah, okay, I'm seeing nods on that. Thank you. All right, colleagues, at this point, we have in front of us the consent package, which includes Group A, all 108 items. The only items that have been removed are item number 31 and number 34. Items 31 and 34 have been removed and will be addressed separately. Therefore, I move to adopt amendment Group A, excluding items 31 and 34. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any additional comments on the remaining items in Group A? Is that a new hand, Councilmember Nelson?
No.
Okay. Hearing no additional comments or questions on the remaining items in Group A, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll on the adoption of the amendment Group A package, excluding items 31 and 34?
Councilmember Herbold,
Yes.
Council President Juarez,
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis,
Yes.
Councilmember Morales,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Aye.
Councilmember Peterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Sawant,
Yes.
Councilmember Strauss,
Yes.
Chair Mosqueda,
Aye.
9 in favor, none opposed.
Excellent, thank you. The motion carries, and the Group A items, excluding item 31 and 34, have been adopted. We will now go on to Item number 31. I'm going to turn it to central staff first to walk us through this item, just to orient us, and then we will consider its passage.
Thank you, Chair Mosqueda. I will just briefly describe the amendment, and I do have other analysts on the line if there are more substantive questions. Item 31 is HSD 1A. This would add 360,000 general fund to HSD, the Human Services Department, for a 2% provider pay increase for continuum of care contracts and impose a proviso. This is sponsored by Chair Mosqueda and Council members Herbold, Morales, and Sawant.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to offer some comments after I think I hear from the council member who might have some questions about this. Councilmember Nelson, you pulled this item. Would you like to make your comments first?
Yes, thank you very much. So if you've been listening for the past couple meetings, there's been a theme emerging, which is concern about adding to our operating deficit going forward. So HSD 001A2 would add $360,000 general fund to HSD for a 2% provider pay increase for continuum of care contracts and impose a proviso. And this creates an ongoing obligation tied to a one-time funding source. It's mostly based on better than expected revenue projections, and we can't count on that to happen going forward in 2025. The actual CBA does have this sentence. It says this CBA is balanced by increasing the one-time transfer from the Jumpstart Payroll Excise Tax Fund to the general fund by $663,000 in CBA FG 801B. So my question is, what happens in 2025 when that transfer will have expired? The question is, well, do we stop paying it or not? And I don't like creating an expectation that this 2% increase will be ongoing, because I and the new council will be on the we'll find ourselves in the position of having to talk about this again and perhaps end it. And that's that's awkward, to say the least. So creating ongoing expenses, I believe, is the kind of decision making that helped get us to this point where we have an ongoing, where we have such a large gap going forward. And I'm just trying to not add to it. For the listening public, these are HUD funded contracts, and HUD does not include a provider pay increase in continuum of care grant funding. And so this would likely require increased funding through congressional appropriation to do so, if they were to include contract adjustments. And that is not something that we can count on, and it would be spread out across all 50 states. And so we don't know if that would even end up trickling down to this. So I'm just trying to play it safe here. On top of that, these contracts are no longer administered by HSD, and we should not be adding to the cost of contracts administered now by KCRHA, which was established as an independent agency to deal with a regional program. And so I feel that is it's getting into the responsibilities of another jurisdiction. So those are the reasons that I'm putting this forward. The CBA ends with this sentence. Because the $360,000 is added to the base contract amount on which future inflationary adjustments are calculated, this CBA worsens the projected ongoing operating deficit in the general fund beginning in 2025-26 biennium by more than $360,000 in 2025, and it would worsen the deficit by $372,000 in 2026. So that's exactly what I'm trying to avoid by pulling this out and having it for individual vote. Thank you very much for entertaining this this motion.
Thank you, Councilmember Nelson. I'll jump in. I don't see additional hands up, but of course, if other council members have anything to add, please do so. My recollection serves correctly. I believe that 4 or 5 of the existing council members that are present here today were co-sponsors of the original legislation to provide the cost of living increase. And it was always the intent to include all the contracts that the city held at the time. So with that framework, I'm happy to provide additional clarification to folks about the legislative intent and the overall vision. I'm going to turn it to Councilmember Herbold, and I will follow her remarks.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate, Madam Chair, the memo that you provided as relates to the legislative intent. Won't go into that because I understand you're gonna talk about it a little bit. I think the point I want to really make though is less related to the legislative intent to cover all of the city services, more what the impact of not addressing this need is today. I understand Councilmember Nelson's concerned about being awkward next year if this is an expectation to be continued next year. I trust that it's a new budget season next year, and those conversations will provide fruitful outcomes. But regardless of what happens next year, if we do not support this budget action this year, the harm will be greater because this is a compounding problem. And so I, without opining on what should happen next year, if we maintain our resolve to address this issue this year, regardless of what the decision is next year, it will be less of a hit to our providers and the folks who are out doing this critical, life-saving, and mission-critical work. I do want to flag also that whereas it's true that this is a system-wide problem with HUD continuum of care contracts, but I think the fact that this is a system-wide problem with HUD provides a great opportunity for jurisdictions across the country to work on this issue and work with our federal delegation. Because again, it is not just workers in the city of Seattle that are falling behind year after year without inflation being covered in the renewal of contracts. It is every jurisdiction in the country that is a continuum of care jurisdiction. And so I think there's an opportunity for a lot of political will to address this. And I really hope that in 2024, the Office of Intergovernmental Relations includes this issue for our federal policy agenda, looks to the leadership of our federal delegation, and works with organizations such as National League of Cities and Local Progress to address this next year. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to take other council member comments, and Councilmember Nelson will come back to you for final comments before the vote. Are there any additional comments that folks would like to make on this item? Okay. I do want to make some comments, and then we'll turn it back over to Councilmember Nelson as the motion maker to remove this item. Thank you, Councilmember Herbold. Thank you, Councilmember Lewis, as well, for your leadership on this topic and this policy. I think it's very important that we have this letter attached to today's agenda, and I offer that as basically a statement of legislative intent, a colloquy, if you will, about what the original intent was. As it notes in the letter, while the council's original intent was for these contracts to receive, thank you very much, Patty, for showing that, and I'm on the second to last paragraph here on page 1. While the council's original intent was for these contracts, just scroll up slightly more, so sorry, one more, thank you. While the council's original intent was for these contracts to receive wage increases under the city's ordinance, the transfer of the continuum of care contracts to the King County Regional Homelessness Authority has resulted in these workers being left out of wage increases in the city's base budget. It's just a matter of time. Without a specific long-term plan to address wage increases for the continuum of care contract, there will be funding inequities among agencies that provide essential services to the city's residents solely based on which government entity holds their contract. human service providers in the city of Seattle and King County all face rising costs of doing business each year. Without inflationary adjustments, agency contracts fall short of covering the costs of providing services. The result of failure to adjust fully or at all to cover inflation has a cumulative effect in this sector, both in terms of workforce due to high vacancy and turnover for staff positions, inability to hire and retain a skilled, diverse workforce in operation and maintenance, like aging facilities, soaring insurance rates, increased utilities, food, transportation, and other programmatic necessities. In addition, homeless services and supportive housing providers serve populations who are disproportionately likely to live with disabilities, serious health problems, and behavioral health disorders. They often operate 24/7 program models. This is both an explanation of the type of services and the ongoing needs that these entities have, and a call for future action to ensure that there's not a puzzle piece or building blocks that need to be put together in the budget. It was the legislative intent to cover these contracts, and it's simply a matter of when these continuum of care contracts ultimately shifted from being held within the city of Seattle to ultimately King County Regional Homelessness Authority. I also offer that this component of the budget is not overall compounding an existing crisis. The budget that we received as a council from the executive branch came down with an ongoing average gap between expenses and revenue of $247 million on average each year for 6 years. I changed that. In my chair's proposed budget and in the budget that we see in front of us, the operating costs have been narrowed down to 221 million. Still significant, but it would be inaccurate to say that the changes made by the council are solely responsible for the increased operational costs. We have an ongoing conversation tomorrow that we will initiate over the next 3 to 4 weeks, again, to come back to the question about revenue. But it's important for us to remember that the gap that we see between expenses and revenue is not only due to increased population, 21% increase in the last decade, the large city across the nation, according to the Seattle Times reporting last year. We have an increased population and we have increased needs due to the ongoing pandemic and economic crisis. We also see that the funding sources that we will use to help provide essential services to respond to the crisis that COVID exacerbated, when those federal dollars went away, the needs did not. So many of us, while we said that the investments would be one time, we have continued to try to find every opportunity to fund ongoing services. And sometimes that includes one-time funding. I know that there's council members here today that have heard serious needs from community members about ongoing ways to serve vulnerable communities. And despite this crisis of revenue that we see on the horizon, want to respond to that crisis. And that's why we built in some additional services into this budget. I want to ensure that council members have the chance to again ask additional questions, but I would refer you to that letter, which really underscores the importance of stabilizing the contracts. And yesterday, again, we spent a lot of time talking about what types of services are provided. This is not just money that goes into one individual's pocketbook. This is funding that goes to support a workforce that then provides direct services, case management, housing assistance, support with getting into shelter, help with finding medication, help with substance abuse navigation, help with finding people and connecting people to their family members, helping youth and seniors and vets and families. That is what this workforce does. So I appreciate that the council has had the chance to discuss this. Again, I urge you to use the letter that's attached to the agenda as a reference point in the future. We know there is much more work to be done, and that work can be done in partnership with the county, state, or federal partners to find longer term solutions. But I want to underscore our appreciation for the frontline workers who do this work, whether they are at youth care or Mary's Place or DESC or members of the Seattle King County Homelessness Coalition, direct human service providers who come year over year and talked about how inability or instability in wages is creating the inability to serve the clients. They have poured their hearts out, helping to illustrate for us the need for investments in wage stability. And this is, I think, the bare minimum that we can do, with the hope that the future council will continue to codify and solidify a strategy to ensure wage parity across this type of work. With that, Councilmember Nelson, I think you're closing us out.
Thank you. Both of you bring up really good points. This is a compounding problem, both the impacts of homelessness and also adding to a base and then having to add to that year after year. And so I recognize that. And I also recognize that, your point about what the mayor's budget did. That is no reason not to try not to add to the continued operating deficit. And let me just say this. I did, like I said, this is a theme that you've heard already. I did a back of the envelope addition of the 10 CBAs that add to our ongoing operating deficit going forward. And it comes out to be about $5.8 million. And so I am not pulling all of these. I'm pulling two that have to do with contracts that have to do with contracts. And I'm not saying that all those are contracts, but these two items are contracts that we no longer administer. They are another jurisdiction that is independent from us. And when I asked this, the question a few meetings ago, has anybody spoken to KCRHA to gauge their willingness to take on these contract adjustments? I think the answer was, I believe it was no, or maybe we will, or whatever. I am saying that we have to draw the line somewhere, and the one place to draw it is on a $360,000 contract adjustment spread over 27. I don't know if you can see it. I asked, these are all the continuum of care organizations, 27 of those that will not be felt very much by the individual workers. And I do think that it's important to signal that we are paying attention to what we're doing to outgoing budgets. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Any additional comments? I'm not seeing any. Again, thanks to Councilmember Lewis and Councilmember Herbold for your partnership in this. The various pieces of legislation over the years, I think, complement each other, and clearly a call for additional work in the future. Okay, Madam Clerk, I'm going to now ask for you to call the roll. It's been, oh, excuse me, Ally. Did you have something?
I think you still need to move the item. Was that already?
I'm gonna go ahead and move the item. I would like to move item number 31, which is HSD 001A. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the council adopt HSD 001 agenda or amendment item 31. Any additional comments? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll on the adoption of item number 31, HSD 001A?
Councilmember Herbold,
Yes.
Council President Juarez,
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis,
Yes.
Councilmember Morales,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson, Councilmember Nelson, Councilmember Peterson.
Yep.
Thank you, Councilmember Nelson. Councilmember Peterson,
Abstain.
Councilmember Sawant,
Yes.
Councilmember Strauss,
Yes.
Chair Mosqueda.
Aye.
8 in favor, 1 abstention.
Great. Just confirming everybody's vote was counted the way they wanted. Okay. Thank you, Madam Clerk. 8 in favor, 1 abstention. The motion carries, and amendment number 31 is adopted. Let's move on to amendment number 34. Central Staff, would you like to describe it?
Item 34 in Group A is HSD 805A. It would add $1.9 million of general fund to the Human Services Department for inflationary adjustments to continuum of care contracts. This is sponsored by Chair Mosqueda and Councilmember Herbold.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm going to just go ahead and move it so it's in front of us. I move agenda item 34, that's HSD 0805A. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Nelson, would you like to speak to this amendment?
Yeah. So similar to my comments before, this CBA makes ongoing the 4% portion of the 2023 inflationary adjustments that was added in a one-time manner in 2023, and it provides a 7.5 inflationary adjustment for 2024 that will get baked into the base upon which we'll be paying the 4% going forward. Again, these contracts are funded by grants from a federal agency and they're administered by KCRHA. So we no longer have a statutory obligation to pay an inflationary adjustment. To bring people's salaries up to parity, no matter who their employer is. I understand that is a desire, but again, we're talking about another agency, and we're not really responsible for how they run their books. So hold on. We have to approve, and so we have to approve the somebody mentioned earlier this morning that we do have to soon approve the salary increases for our own employees, and that is our first responsibility going forward. And there, and so that will be a task that is up to us next year as well. This CBA is part of the chair's balancing package, which was based on better than expected revenue projections, and we can't count on that to happen again in 2025. In fact, based on what we currently know, the money to pay for this in 2025 may not even exist because we're $200 million in the hole, and we shouldn't just keep on digging. The CBA ends because the $1.9 million is added to the base contract amount on which future inflationary adjustments are calculated. This CBA worsens the projected ongoing operating deficit in the general fund beginning in the 2025-2026 biennium by more than 1.9 million. In 2025 and 2026, it would worsen the deficit by 2 million. And so I ask you, can we not do that, and to vote no on this?
Any additional comments on this one? Item number 34. Okay, I think the comments from before also apply to this one. I'll just add that the human service provider contracts, these are our workers in essence. We, like many cities, have made a choice a long time ago to outsource this work. And as the council president noted, I believe yesterday, many of these workers are women. Many of these workers are women of color, and they provide some of the hardest work to some of the most vulnerable and hard to serve community members. And that type of work requires sustainability and continuity of workers. We have a lot of turnover in this area because of the nature of this work, and offering wage stability, at least being able to keep up with inflation, is a critical way for us to invest in this workforce that should and would otherwise be considered public sector work. But we've outsourced it in many ways to these organizations who are largely nonprofit, who do this work out of the good of their heart, who do this on a 24/7 basis, as we heard. And in many ways, they are doing the public service that is required, but it just happens to be under a different entity. The other point I want to make is the King County Regional Homelessness Authority does not have revenue generating capability. And to date, the City of Seattle is the largest contributor to that entity. As such, when we transferred these contracts, and the intent was to ensure that there was inflationary adjustment and wage stability offered, the intent was to ensure that that was maintained no matter who held that contract. So I do think that it is still incumbent on the City of Seattle to continue to offer funds until, and I hope one day, King County Regional Homelessness Authority does have revenue generating ability, greater sustainability. But until then, as the largest contributor, I still think we have a responsibility. Councilmember Nelson, final comment?
Yeah, I mean, I understand that this is important work and that the people doing this work deserve to be paid well. I don't like this being framed as a pro or con the important work that's being done or by the people that are doing it. I am making an administrative argument. And KCRHA is an independent agency that was set up so that other cities will step up to address a regional issue. And KCRHA will not have a revenue generating itself capability, but other cities can also take responsibility for the contracts under the administration's purview. So that is why I am focusing or picking on these contracts, is because it is no longer something that is directly under our control. And I do think that at some point we have to recognize the independence of that agency. Thanks.
The last thing I would mention is, thanks to the mayor's office, we have received the initial results from the Human Services Department report. I believe that that's been circulated to the floor. Just double checking with my colleagues that you've all received that. We will also be happy to make that available as a reference point on the minutes here today. And if necessary, we are happy to apply it to the agenda tomorrow, just for a point of reference. So thank you to the Human Services Department for quickly expediting some key takeaways from the report that they're still working on. Greatly appreciate that. Also want to underscore appreciation for the mayor's office for working to include the inflationary adjustments in the proposed budget. I think it was only a matter of not having the fuller picture that we all then were able to cobble together over the subsequent weeks after receiving the initial budget, that we all then realized there was other components, other contract avenues that were not fully covered by the inflationary adjustment. I believe it was our unified intent to do that amongst the legislative and the executive branch. So again, thanks to the Human Services Department for quickly expediting that report. That was part of what council members wanted to see. And I think that it already underscores what we have seen, which is the effectiveness of having direct investments into human service workers. That inflationary adjustment helps to address the rising costs across the board, and ensuring that there's funding necessary for not only the increased costs for the organizations and the cost of doing business, but to also address salaries and wages, and to ensure that there's stability in that sector. That is what delivers results. That is how we accomplish getting people into housing. That is how we ensure people get connected to the health services that we all want to see. And if we want to hold ourselves accountable to results, we have to ensure that there's a stable workforce. So thanks again to HSD for sending down that initial report. Thanks to the human service providers who testified in last month's work session on the effectiveness, the efficacy of investing in wage stability. And my hope is, again, that this will be a yes vote today with future work to come on the base legislation. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll on the adoption of item number 34, HSD 805A?
Councilmember Herbold,
Yes.
Council President Juarez,
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis,
Yes.
Councilmember Morales,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
No.
Councilmember Peterson,
Abstain.
Councilmember Sawant,
Yes.
Councilmember Strauss,
Yes.
Chair Mosqueda.
Aye.
7 in favor, 1 opposed, and 1 abstention.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The motion carries, and item number 34, HSD 805A is adopted. I believe that gets us through Group A. All right, we're going to move on over to Group B. I don't believe there's a final action to take on Group A. Again, as a reminder, we're going to vote on all of these items, and then we're going to hold until Monday for any technical things. One last look through central staff. So that moves us right over to Group B. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to central staff to give any additional framing as we then head in to Group B. And I would remind council members that if you are the prime sponsor, I will turn to you to make the motion to move your amendment.
Thank you, Chair Mosqueda. I don't have any framing comments, except to say when we get to certain items that may no longer be in consideration because of other decisions made previously, I'll just note that when we get there, or items where like both options might not proceed. And then just a clarifying question, do you want me to describe the first item before you ask the sponsor to move it, or do you want to have them make that motion first?
Yeah, no, I think it's helpful to have the description, because then if folks are weighing whether or not they want to second something, they'll have that context. So we'll have central staff describe the item, and then I'll turn it to the sponsor to make the motion, and we'll go from there.
Great. Okay, so then the first item in Group B is a number 109 in the packet, CBO 1B1. This is sponsored, excuse me, let me scroll my screen here. I have too many windows open. This is sponsored by Councilmember Peterson, who is joined by Councilmember Morales and Councilmember Lewis. This would add $706,000 of general fund to the Office of City Auditor and 5 FTE to increase auditing capacity. Add $760,000 of general fund in ITD to implement the Internet for All Seattle Action Plan. Adds $250,000 general fund to the Department of Neighborhoods and $50,000 to the Human Services Department for community safety initiatives. And another $250,000 added to the Human Services Department to support food banks. This is balanced by reducing the proposed funding for central service allocations in the Department of Finance and Administrative Services and the Technology Department.
Thank you. Councilmember Peterson, as sponsor of the amendment, would you like to move it?
Thank you, Chair Mosqueda. Colleagues, I move to amend Council Bill 120708 as presented on CBA CBO 001B1.
Second.
Okay, it has been seconded. It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Peterson, you're welcome to speak to your amendment.
Thank you, Chair Mosqueda. Want to start by thanking steadfast co-sponsors, Councilmembers Morales and Lewis. They're more eloquent than I am, but I'll go ahead and try to speak to this council budget action. I really want to also thank the more than 250 constituents who emailed the city council just in the last couple of days in support of this amendment. At last night's public hearing, I don't recall anybody speaking against this amendment. I want to thank central staff for their diligent work in crafting the amendment. It was not easy to do because they're trying to get their arms around this complicated calculations of what we call central services costs that currently exceed $500 million. So big picture, this amendment, CBO 001, for $2 million would increase accountability, digital equity, community safety, and food security, while still granting most of the increase requested by the executive for their estimates of our city government administrative central services costs. So breaking this down and what we'd be investing in, the amendment finally increases the bandwidth of our legislative branch's Office of City Auditor. As we know, our city auditor's office produces recommendations that improve city government and ultimately save money for the people of Seattle. The city auditor needs more auditors to fulfill the city council's many requests as we see city budget and city programs increase. Having an adequately staffed city auditor will increase accountability, efficiency, and effectiveness across all city departments, so City Hall can better serve all of our residents. The amendment also makes progress on our official policy to bridge the digital divide by ultimately enabling every Seattleite to have access to reliable internet services as directed by our resolution 31956. The amendment also increases safety with additional support for effective community-based crime prevention programs, including the Rainier Beach program, A Beautiful Safe Place for Youth. And finally, this CBA would provide one-time funding for the capital campaign of a new food bank facility, the Rainier Valley Food Bank, which is one of the busiest in Seattle. This amendment is funded by providing a smaller than requested increase to the internal administrative costs of the city government. So less than a year ago, the city council endorsed a 2024 budget that included over $500 million for these internal administrative costs. Now we're being asked to approve a $17 million increase on top of that for larger estimates of these central service costs, including estimates of future gasoline costs, estimates of lawsuit payouts. This budget action still grants a majority of that requested increase, but retains the $2 million of general fund dollars to invest in these accountability, equity, and safety programs I described earlier. So hopefully co-sponsors will be able to speak as well to this, but I do encourage a yes vote on this, which ultimately reinforces the independence of the legislative branch in making its own final budget decisions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember. Are there any additional comments that council members would like to make? I'll offer a few comments if there's no other comments. First, thank you, Councilmember Peterson, for bringing this forward. I want to separate my comments about the investments, where the funding goes, versus the fund source, where the funding comes from. I think the items that you've articulated for where funding could go are clear needs across our city. We have, I think, a joint interest in increasing funding and capacity for the audit office. And the auditor did send a request. We did meet the requested amount that they had put in their letter and fully funded that initial request. So I agree with you that there is ongoing need. I'd like to make sure that there's a separation for the other investments that you noted, both into community safety and food support and funding for things like internet for all things that I've absolutely supported in the past. And you will see some of those investments specifically for food in this budget as well. However, I want to ensure that I lift up some of the concerns that we've also received about where the funding comes from. I'm very concerned about the proposed reductions and the potential impact that those reductions would have on our city's ability to offer services to community members and to be responsive departments when we receive calls and inquiries from members of the public. It does not create greater efficiency within our own departments if there's layoffs or gaps in service as a result of where funding would have to be reduced from. And as we've heard from central staff, they don't have a clear definition of the impacts of the amendment yesterday, but at the end of yesterday, we received feedback from the executive's office, and I would direct us to the letter that we all received from the mayor's office that talks about the impact, the citywide impact on the central cost that would result in layoffs due to the constraints on how to implement the reduction. I'll quote, because of the majority of the additional cost in the 2024 central cost manual is due to increased costs in judgment and claims, it is not possible to mitigate the impact of this proposed reduction by finding mitigated efficiencies or other cost savings. The second largest area of increased spending are resources from supporting assumptions around the anticipated outcome of labor contracts that are under deliberation. The mayor's office reiterated the concerns that they would have about the ability to fulfill the outcomes of the labor contracts that are currently underway. The proposed reductions would largely either be taken from service reductions or layoffs or a combination. Again, I quote, if reductions are concentrated on service reductions, the proposed impact would mean reductions in customer service centers in the downtown and in neighborhood, reductions in the animal shelter, janitorial and maintenance services in city-owned or leased properties, and maintaining and fueling the city's fleet. If reductions were concentrated on staffing, it could mean an estimated 18 FTEs could be laid off in IT. These are just examples of the impacts of the reduction. And then central staff's, and the executive went on to talk about how there would be additional reductions that they will have to assess. The proposed reduction stems from a fundamental misunderstanding of what is included in the citywide central costs. These are costs to operate the government, including changes to IT, FAS, and HR. The majority of the additional costs in the 2024 central cost manual is due to increased costs in judgment and claims. And it goes on to talk about how this could have a detrimental impact on additional services that the city desires to provide and efficient services to our community members. I will pause there and turn it over to Councilmember Strauss And, oh, look at all these hands. And Councilmember Peterson, I am going to come back to you to close this out, but I'll do Councilmember Strauss next.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councilmember Peterson, for bringing this amendment forward. I love everything that it funds, and that love is also for the basic government services in which this funding was originally routed to support, whether it's the janitorial services or supporting the animal shelter or making sure that our fleets either have gas or electricity in their batteries or tanks. I love what you're doing here with what we're funding. Unfortunately, I won't be able to support it today due to where the funding sources are coming from. So thank you for putting this forward.
Thank you, Councilmember Strauss. Councilmember Herbold.
Thank you. I think this is a question I'm hoping to direct to Council Central staff. As I understand the information that we received from the executive, they are talking about what the impacts might be if this $2 million in funding was taken from the increase over the amount adopted or endorsed by the council for 2024 last year. But why I'm struggling with that, I can understand that 2 million of 17 million, that might have a significant impact. But I'm thinking about this in terms of 2 million of 500 million. To me, that's a haircut. And I'm wondering whether or not Council Central staff can speak to that. I know we don't know a lot about how this $500 million is spent as part of the central services budget for all departments. But I'm just wondering if there's anything that will be of assistance to us in making our decision today that you can share about what an impact of a $2 million cut to a $500 million expenditure might be.
Councilmember Herbold will take a first shot at that question, and then my colleagues Eden and Tom are on the line. If they have anything to add, I'll invite them to chime in. But I would say generally, so the information that we've received from the executive, both prior to the email from yesterday and yesterday, it is referring to both things. It's talking both about the increases and the overall, the base of central costs. And I think this just highlights what central staff has been trying to say throughout this budget process. There is a lack of visibility and frankly transparency from the executive about how these rates are developed, exactly how they're being programmed, where there might be efficiencies and that sort of thing. So I think there are a lot of assertions being made on all sides here about what the potential impacts will or won't be. And I think frankly, we don't know. I can't really say. It does seem reasonable to say $2 million of a $500+ million budget could be absorbed without significant impacts. But I don't have enough visibility into those budgets to really say that for sure. And because this is not a targeted cut, like we're saying reduce spending in this specific area of spending that central rates come out of, it will be up to the executive to determine how it's implemented. And so those impacts are kind of in their control a bit. And so while I don't think it will impact all of the things, I think right now with a short turnaround time, the executive is highlighting areas they might look to implement these reductions. And I'll just offer some examples of where I think some of it's overstated. The animal shelter is not primarily funded by central rates. So how this CBA is implemented or is crafted, it just sort of assumes an underspend in those department budgets so that the executive could choose to implement it by reducing general fund spending in the animal shelter, and not impact things that are directly funded from central rates, but that's not the intent of the sponsor. So I think here it's just highlighting like where those reductions could come from, but I'm afraid we can't really offer you certainty about what those impacts would be because it is complicated. And I would just point to the last part of the email from the executive. I do think that this is an area that we're going to have to look at in 2025 for sure and have more visibility into it for the next council. But right now we don't have enough information to understand the implications of doing this to fund new things or to just provide savings.
And may I just have a quick follow-up?
Mm-hmm.
Would it be true to say that this is an area that council has not sought additional transparency? Or have we sought additional transparency and not received it?
Sorry, was that to the chair or to central staff?
The central staff.
Oh, I would say this is an area, this is one of many areas where we have talked about transparency, and it's why we lifted it up in issue ID. I don't know, and I think the budget director would confirm, I don't know if, at least in this current administration, they have been asked directly to brief on central rates and provide those details. I think for the public and the council, that visibility should just be, that transparency should be there without having to be requested generally, but that is why central staff lifted it up in issue identification of this is an area where the council may want to provide oversight. And the executive hasn't indicated that they're unwilling to provide that briefing. And so that was why we teed it up for discussion and a potential area of inquiry for future council discussions, because I expect, given the ongoing discussions with the budget office, they would be willing to brief the council with more details on the central rates in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Morales.
Thank you. So I agree, with the chair in respect to her analysis around separating support of critical services and the need to have better transparency and accountability and good governance. I think Ally is right. We do need a better understanding of how this works. So I want to thank Councilmember Peterson for his leadership, because I do think a key part of this is trying to get more transparency into our city's budgetary decisions. In less than a year, our central costs ballooned to an additional $17 million. And the funding for our infrastructure is important to maintain services. We have a growing outward deficit that we're all looking at, and it really calls for us to examine every part of how our budget is working, because it will impact our policy decisions. So we're still struggling to address that uncertainty. That's going to be a huge conversation for next year. But I appreciate Ally's comments about the need for greater transparency and the need to have a much clearer understanding and much sooner when this sort of, dramatic shift is happening in the city. So I just want to say that, this amendment is really brought with the spirit of collaboration across offices and also, across branches to encourage the executive to really engage with us in better transparency about our city's budget impacts. And I will continue to sponsor this amendment from Councilmember Peterson.
Excellent. Well, thank you. And with that, I think I will turn it over to Councilmember Peterson for last comments. I will also say, I think finding that common ground that we talked about earlier, there's a lot of common ground in wanting to help reduce those central costs. And I will offer up, perhaps for the future council, the ability to reconvene the LMLC, the Labor Management Leadership Committee, who in the initial years of when I first came on board pre-COVID was trying to convene to identify ways to reduce costs, increase efficiency, increase retention, become a more attractive place to bring new employees as well. And, many of the frontline employees had raised concerns about increased costs and policies tied to this central process that was relatively new in 2016 and 17 when I came in. That said, I think that there's probably more work to be done there to ask the frontline workers how to identify ways to reduce those costs. And so I really hope that that's part of the future conversation. ways within our own city government we can be more efficient. I know that many of the frontline workers have ideas for how to do that. And I think that this dovetails nicely with the conversation we'll have tomorrow about the budget transparency legislation. So again, common ground there and wanting to get more information earlier, clearer, not just for the legislative and executive branch discussions, but for members of the public. So this is a good tie into that. And Councilmember Peterson, I'll turn it to you. Again, just noting the concern here with the sort of unknowns, the way in which this potentially would be applied is my concern here. So I'll still be voting no. But I think through this conversation, I hear kernels of where there's common ground in wanting to reduce those costs and also then make sure that funding is able to invest in either people or efficient processes. So I'll turn it to Councilmember Peterson to close us out on this.
Thank you, Chair Mosqueda, and thanks everybody for the comments, and really just want to lift up that, you know, these, if we don't vote for the council budget action, there are these really good investments that will not be getting these resources. And so I'm hoping that we can get sufficient support now so that we can invest in these. It's my understanding, one of the other things we learned is that with these central services costs, they are just estimates of what they will be over the next 12 months. And so historically, the central service offices are giving money back, refunding money at the end of the year. So it is something that can be calibrated mid-year next year if necessary. But again, we're going off of these estimates of what's a base of $500 million, a request that just came in for 17 million more. We are going to still grant a majority of that requested increase as part of the CBA. And we're going to make these other investments in accountability, equity, safety, food security. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Peterson. Okay, Madam Clerk, we are on agenda item number 109, amendment number 109 CBO 001B1. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll on the adoption of agenda on amendment number 109?
Councilmember Herbold,
Yes.
Council President Juarez,
No.
Councilmember Lewis,
Yes.
Councilmember Morales,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Abstain.
Councilmember Peterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Sawant,
No.
Councilmember Strauss,
No.
Chair Mosqueda.
No.
4 in favor, 4 opposed, and 1 abstention.
Thank you so much. Having failed to receive a majority of the votes, the amendment fails and item number 109 does not pass. Moving on to item 110.
Item 110 is Deal 1A2. This would add $20 million of Jumpstart funds to the Department of Education and Early Learning for K-12 educational supports, prioritizing services that improve mental health outcomes. This is sponsored by Councilmember Sawant, who's joined by Councilmember Mosqueda and Councilmember Herbold. And I'll just note that previously in the morning session, the council passed the legislation that was necessary to increase the payroll tax rates in order to support this expenditure.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Sawant, do you want to move your amendment?
Yes, thank you. I move to amend Council Bill 120708 as presented on CBA Deal 001A2.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Sawant, would you like to speak to your amendment?
Yes, this budget amendment funds mental health counselors and social workers for Seattle Public Schools using the $20 million that was agreed to by the majority of the council by increasing the payroll expense tax or the Amazon tax in the budget amendment that was voted for this morning. I have already spoken to the issue and I thank the council members who voted yes on this and budget amendment to make the funding available. But yes, I still remain here to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Councilmember. Are there any additional comments or questions on this item? Not seeing any and recognizing the robust discussion from this morning, I think we're ready to vote. This allows for the funding to be deployed as directed in the earlier discussion, 20 million to Department of Education and Early Learning for K-12 educational support services, prioritizing mental health outcomes. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll on the adoption of amendment number 110 deal 001A2?
Councilmember Herbold,
Yes.
Council President Juarez,
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis,
Yes.
Councilmember Morales,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Aye.
Councilmember Peterson,
Abstain.
Councilmember Sawant,
Yes.
Councilmember Strauss,
Abstain.
Chair Mosqueda,
Aye.
7 in favor, 2 abstentions.
Thank you very much. The motion carries and amendment 110 deal 001A2 will be adopted. We are going to skip amendment 111, which is FG 501A2 that did not receive sufficient votes to advance, so there is no fund source for that item. And we'll move on to amendment number 112.
Great. Item 112 is HSD 4A2. This would add $1.5 million to the Human Services Department for behavioral health services, case management, and operational costs at existing non-congregate shelters, and reduces proposed funding by $1.5 million for the crime prevention pilot program in the Seattle Police Department. This is sponsored by Councilmember Sawant, who is joined by Councilmembers Herbold and Chair Mosqueda.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Sawant, do you want to move your amendment?
Yes, thank you. I move to amend Council Bill 120708 as presented on CBA HST 004A2.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Sawant, would you like to speak to your amendment?
Yes, so this budget amendment would cut the $1.5 million budgeted for acoustic gunshot locator system or shot spotter, which, as the data shows, is essentially a snake oil product, and instead use that funding to backfill the majority of the behavioral health services funding Lehigh uses to support residents of tiny house villages throughout the city. The city provided $2.5 million to Lehigh for these essential behavioral health services this year. Sorry, but it was one-time funding, even though there is nothing one-time as we know about the need for these services.
Councilmember, do you want to take a break? I'm happy to offer you a water break if you need.
Yes,
Okay.
actually, I would appreciate it.
No
Thank you so
problem.
much. I'll just get some water and be right back.
We will come back to you, Councilmember Sawant. Thank you so much. Council members, as we take a pause here, is there any additional council members who would like to offer some comments? Councilmember Herbold.
Sure, thank you. So there's been a lot said about the ineffectiveness of this technology. And there's been a lot said about the civil liberties impacts associated with increased surveillance. There's been a lot said about the harm that has been done, in some cases, a death from false positives. I really want to focus on that. That's all very important, but I want to focus on the fact that more and more members in the profession of law enforcement coming out in opposition to the use of ShotSpotter in their city. For instance, the police chief in San Antonio was the person who led the charge and the city's contract with ShotSpotter. He referred to their efforts as a better than good faith effort, trying to make it work. There's a police chief in Massachusetts who also ended their contract with ShotSpotter, referred to it as a costly system that isn't working to the effectiveness that we need in order to justify the costs. Portland, Atlanta, have decided to not move forward with a contract. New Orleans, Dayton, Charlotte, and Trenton ended their shot spotter contracts. And Chicago's mayor has just recently promised to get rid of shot spotter in the city during his campaign. That contract is up in February. And so why is it that law enforcement experts are taking this position? It's really because of this issue with false positives. It's not just that it's ineffective. It's that it draws police officers to a location where they're not needed. And so just in Chicago alone, they found that 90% shot spotter alerts were false positives. And they found because of that, because of officers being drawn to a location where there were no actual gunshots, these officers were dispatched 40,000 times when no gun-related violence had taken place. This is, I think, really something that's important for us to think about in Seattle when we have the staffing challenges in our police department and the recruitment challenges that many cities are also facing. But I think we really need to think about what it means for police officers to be sent to locations time and time and time again when there isn't an actual need for them to be going there. When they're going there, that means they're not going somewhere else where they need to go. And I know we've talked a lot about 911 priority 1 response times and our desire to make sure that those response times are at a 7-minute for priority 1 response time, and that in some precincts we're seeing response times for priority 1 higher than that. So I just really think we need to think about what this means for our public safety response. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sawant, did you want to jump in at this point, or do you want me to circle back to you?
I will try to jump in. Hopefully there won't be another spate of coughing. Thank you, Councilmember Herbold, for sharing very important statistical information about, and really just devastating statistical information, just devastating and decisive. This is not just equivocal information. This is unequivocally devastating information, statistical analysis that this simply does not work. As Councilmember Herbold said, that according to the MacArthur Justice Center study that was conducted 2 years ago, ShotSpotter generated over 40,000 dead-end police deployments in Chicago in 21 months. I mean, this is just decisive. There's just simply no justification for using this. Anybody who thinks that we are trying something new is either just completely ignorant of this deadly information or statistical information, or they have a vested interest. I mean, I heard several individuals like Victoria Beach and Harriet Walden, and let's be clear, they were, there were lots of differences between them and many of the rank and file Black community members who were marching in the Black Lives Matter protests. So I don't think this can be an issue of, well, we're Black, so we're speaking about this. I think one of the points that they were making is that let's try something new. I believe that was said last night in public comment, but that's what I want to point out, that what this is not going to be trying something new. This would, and if this council funded ShotSpotter, it would be trying something that has already been tried and completely been rejected. So it's just a foolhardiness of this is it's not credible. The only reason to put this forward would be because there are vested interests at play, which I will come to in a second. But just on the MacArthur Justice Center study, I also wanted to share that study was also the basis of an amicus brief that was filed in support of a motion by the Cook County Public Defender in Chicago. I mean, in the Chicago area, that challenges the scientific validity of ShotSpotter gunfire reports. That amicus brief was submitted on behalf of a coalition of community-based organizations in the Chicago region where they are, they are extremely concerned. They have been extremely concerned about the impact of ShotSpotter on over-policed and under-resourced communities of color on the city's south and west sides. And those organizations are Brighton Park Neighborhood Council, Lucy Parsons Labs, and Organized Communities Against Deportation. So these are all community organizations serving some of the most vulnerable, marginalized communities that are in danger from all kinds of law enforcement authorities. And just to quote the membership coordinator of the last organization I mentioned, Organized Communities Against Deportations, Miguel Lopez, quote, knowing very well that police officers tend to escalate all types of situations and are known to use excessive force, the ShotSpotter technology creates an additional layer of violent response from police officers as they rush aggressively to poor Black and brown neighborhoods expecting to be met with gunfire. If the city was really serious about stopping gun violence, they would listen to the community and use those, at that time, the $33 million to invest in those communities in order to create a social environment where young people would have the transformative tools to deal with conflict, end quote. So I think this quote from the person there really encapsulates the problem and also the solution. And that is, this amendment is exactly in that spirit. And I just wanted to say that, it just doesn't, in the face of such conclusive evidence, statistical evidence, there's just, the question needs to be asked, why does this keep coming up over and over again? I don't think we should be naive about this. I am, I don't claim to read anybody's minds, but, and I'm not speculating about anyone's intentions, but let's look at the facts. The facts are that ShotSpotter executives have donated to Mayor Harrell's mayoral election campaigns both in 2013 and 2021, and this was reported in a South Seattle Emerald article last year. So, take it for what it tells you, but at the end of the day, the evidence is absolutely starkly clear. This $1.5 million would be far better spent on essential behavioral health services rather than on essentially proven broken technology. And I urge all council members to vote yes.
Thank you. Are there other council members that would like to offer comment? Okay, I'm not seeing any. I will offer some comments of my own and want to again underscore the importance of both the investments here and also the fund source. The investments that we're talking about are really critical. We're talking about making sure that we can apply funding to growing community needs and ensuring that our most vulnerable have the resources necessary to have direct care. Shelter for our most vulnerable community members is a critical investment that if we had additional funding in the budget, we would be able to make immediate and direct impact. That's where the funding goes. I know that there's a lot of interest in doing that across this council, and I would encourage us to again think of areas in the budget where there's new or untested pilot activities, any opportunity that we can do in this biennial budget, in the second part of the biennial budget, to move money into known needs instead of untested technology, to me is an easy choice to make when there is incredible need out there. So from a pure investment strategy and where the dollars could go and the lens of not wanting to apply a new more than $1 million worth of investments into something that is a pilot when we have ongoing pressing needs and unmet needs, this seems to make a lot of sense. There's three other things that I'd like to conclude on. Number one, I'd like to just underscore the importance of comparing the experience in other jurisdictions. Number two, I'd like to follow up on the comments that were made about the impact on staffing and the response when ShotSpotter is used. And number three, the untested technology and the implications that has for our community members. So on the first component, with other cities, ShotSpotter has been shown to be ineffective at preventing or investigating gun violence based on a study of 68 large metropolitan cities across the United States. One of the reasons that this was brought forward to us, as described in the briefing, was to use this as a gun prevention technology tool. And in those 68 other cities, they have not seen this technology be an effective tool to preventing or either investigating gun use. In a recent study in Chicago, some of us have talked about this already, ShotSpotter has found a 90% false positive rate over a period of 20 years. This led to police being sent into neighborhoods over 40,000 times when no gun-related violence had taken place. In St. Louis, a city that has one of our highest gun violence rates across the entire country, acoustic gunshot detection was shown to have no significant ability to reduce violent crime levels. And number 3, when we look at the pairing of CCTV, closed captioning television, video surveillance with ShotSpotter, there was conversation about how this could potentially improve the technology. But we have evidence from Philadelphia. Philadelphia deployed both technologies, the closed captioning television along with ShotSpotters, and they found that there was not a decrease in crime in Philadelphia. The 2018 study examined the efficacy of combining audio gunshot detection systems with closed captioning television, showing the similar results as ShotSpotter alone. It, quote, did not significantly affect the number of confirmed shootings, but did increase the workload of police attending incidences for which no evidence of shooting was found. That means more policing, especially policing in BIPOC neighborhoods, on high alert. To the points that I believe Councilmember Herbold was underscoring around already stretched staff and the overreaction when those staff are deployed, Councilmember Sawant also noted this. ShotSpotter has false alarm rates that send police on numerous trips into communities for no reason, on high alert, expecting potential guns to be drawn and dangerous situations. In Chicago alone, officers were deployed more than 60 times a day. Indeed, the Chicago's Inspector General analysis of Chicago's police data found that, quote, the perceived aggregate frequency of ShotSpotter alerts, end quote, in some neighborhoods led officers to engage in more stops and pat downs. Finally, the placement of sensors in some neighborhoods, but not in others, means that police will detect incidents, whether it's real or false, in places where sensors are located. And that can distort gunshot statistics and create a circular statistical justification for over-policing in communities, especially communities of color. So the escalation of police presence and police behavior based on faulty gunshot detection technology have consequences. And it's important to underscore that in one example, there was a young 13-year-old Mexican-American elementary school student who was shot and killed after police responded to ShotSpotter. Finally, on the technology not being tested and not being peer-reviewed, gunshot detection technology has led to wrongful arrests and wrongful convictions through inaccurate data and collection between ShotSpotter and police departments. In Chicago, police charged a man with murder based on faulty ShotSpotter data that was manually altered to support criminal charges, causing him to spend 11 months in jail before the case was eventually dismissed. Prosecutors have attempted to introduce audio of voices recorded through these technologies as evidence in at least 2 criminal trials. And finally, most recently in Houston, more than 80% of ShotSpotter alerts did not result in an incident report, around half of the rate of the 911 calls. Meanwhile, the Houston Police Department average response time is slower than it's been in nearly 30 years. Some worry that ShotSpotter is diverting officers away from the emergencies and stretching an already understaffed police force even thinner. So I just wanted to underscore those 3 components, those 3 points that I think support what our other council members have shared already. Council colleagues, is there any final comments on this item? Okay, hearing none. Madam Clerk, could you please, and I just want to double check any final comments. Okay. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll on the adoption of item number 112, HFD 004A2?
Councilmember Herbold,
Yes.
Council President Juarez,
No.
Councilmember Lewis,
No.
Councilmember Morales,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
No.
Councilmember Peterson,
No.
Councilmember Sawant,
Yes.
Councilmember Strauss,
No.
Chair Mosqueda.
No. Oh, excuse me. I changed my vote. Aye.
4 in favor, 5 opposed.
Thank you very much. The motion failed, and amendment number 112 does not advance. Amendment number 113, please, Council Central Staff.
Number 113 in Group B, SPD 900A. This would impose a proviso on the 1.5 million in SPD's budget for the crime prevention pilot program. This, this is sponsored by Chair Mosqueda.
Thank you so much. I'll go ahead and move that item. I move the council approve item 113 SPD 900A2. For a second.
Second.
Thank you very much. It has been moved and seconded. Colleagues, we have spent quite a bit of time talking about ShotSpotter already. So let me just talk about some of the sideboards that we put into this legislation in front of us. The intent here is to make sure that we have put into place the ability for a proviso so that there is a racial equity toolkit and community engagement process tied to the conversation that we are requesting happen in Q1 before any development of surveillance ordinance is created, and that the racial equity toolkit and the community engagement through a public hearing coordinated by the executive, inviting participation from council, that inform what ultimately comes to council via the way of a potential ordinance that allows for this technology to advance. We currently do not have the capability or the legal capability to purchase the technology nor deploy it because the ordinance has not yet passed. So the sideboards that we are requesting here create a opportunity for public engagement through a public hearing coordinated by the executive, inviting participation from the council, that will help inform the racial equity toolkit analysis, which includes the crafting of the racial equity toolkit from the Office of Civil Rights, and then ultimately the ordinance as it comes to council will then include and be informed by that racial equity analysis and community forum. The hope as well is that all of those conversations are geographically based so that each conversation around where this technology is deployed has the opportunity for deep community engagement, a racial equity analysis, and the appropriate and corresponding ordinance. I will turn it over to our other colleagues and co-sponsors of this to see if there's any additional information that you'd like to add. And finally, would just note my appreciation for the executive as we have worked to try to ensure that this would be implemented. We have had conversations directly with the executive, and I want to thank Deputy Mayor Burgess for working with our office to finalize the language on this so that there would be implementation of the vision of the proviso as described. Council colleagues, anything else to add? Councilor Peterson, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Mosqueda. Just looking at the proviso itself within the 56-page Group B, I just wanted to better understand this. So it said there's a sentence in there that says, additionally, this funding shall not be spent until authorized by future ordinance. So you're saying that there would have to be a council bill that would go through the council next year to authorize what this budget's setting aside money for?
Yeah, and I would encourage central staff to weigh in on this. As a reminder, that would be required anyways, right? There is not the statutory authority to purchase this existing technology. We don't have the surveillance ordinance process has not already approved the use of this technology. So a requirement that the council vote on legislation is not something that's necessarily additive. The additive components that we've been working with council members and members of the community and the executive is to ensure that the racial equity toolkit, which includes the Office of Civil Rights, is is informed by a public conversation or a public hearing that the executive will hold. Obviously, council members are invited to participate in that, but that is something that they will hold that will help inform the racial equity toolkit that then will ultimately inform the surveillance ordinance that gets sent to council. We do not have the statutory authority to move forward with this existing technology that's being requested, and thus the council members would have to pass that in the future, given that that's a new technology. Councilmember Herbold, I saw you nodding. Would you like to add anything to that?
So I think you explained it perfectly. The proviso doesn't create the conditions where an ordinance has to be passed. Those conditions already exist. This needs to be authorized via legislation as a surveillance technology.
And I failed to mention as well my excitement about the Office of the Inspector General as well. The Office of the Inspector General in their SPD policy oversight role, as well as the Office of Civil Rights, given their vast experience with working on robust racial equity toolkit analyses, that is a value add that we are including here, but the ordinance itself is not. Am I coming in clear, or am I glitching out a little?
Sorry, Chair Mosqueda, I think I missed, my internet cut out for a moment, so I'm going to see if Greg Doss is on the line to respond to that question, because I missed it entirely.
Thank you, Ali, and
Yes.
thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee, Greg Doss, Central Staff. I think what Councilmember Mosqueda and Councilmember Herbold are saying is correct, and from a process standpoint, there is an ordinance that is required under the surveillance ordinance. There would be a SIR ordinance, a surveillance impact report ordinance, that the council would have to affirmatively pass in order to authorize the purchase of this technology. It would also be the case that this proviso would need to be lifted in legislation that the council could do as part of its normal supplemental budget or any other legislation that the council might pass.
And again, I would underscore that this has been crafted with the executive. They are fully aware that they know that an ordinance needs to be crafted, and the value add here is looping in the Inspector General office, the Office of the Inspector General in their SPD policy oversight role, as well as the Office of Civil Rights with their experience on working on racial equity toolkits, that vast experience they have, pulling them into the process. I think it's going to be a value add, along with the executive hosting a public hearing, inviting participation from members of the council. I think that this will help improve both the transparency of the creation of the ordinance, but also help inform the ultimate ordinance that comes to council. And no objections were raised about the concept of this proviso and the need to then lift it later by the executive. Okay. With that, any additional comments? Okay, I want to thank you, Greg, for that feedback as well, and Melanie Cray in my office, who's done a tremendous amount of work on this as well.
Yeah, and Councilmember, if I might just add, the confusion here, I think, is around that last sentence, because it says that the funding shall not be spent until authorized by a future ordinance. I could see how that might be interpreted to mean the ordinance that would authorize and adopt the SIR, but in this case, the council would probably remove this proviso as well in a supplemental budget.
Okay. Seeing no additional comments, I'm going to call the roll on adoption of this item. Item number 113, SPD 900A. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll on the adoption of item 113?
Councilmember Herbold,
Yes.
Council President Juarez,
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis,
Yes.
Councilmember Morales,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Abstain.
Councilmember Peterson,
Abstain.
Councilmember Sawant,
Yes.
Councilmember Strauss,
Yes.
Chair Mosqueda.
Aye.
7 in favor, 2 abstentions.
Thank you so much. The motion carries and amendment number 113 will be adopted. Moving on to item number 114.
Item 114 is HSD 813B. This would add $300,000 of general fund to the Human Services Department to fund a comprehensive substance use disorder treatment program or pilot program. This is sponsored by Councilmember Nelson, who is joined by Council members Peterson and Councilmember Strauss.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Nelson, would you like to move your amendment?
Yes, I move to amend Council Bill 120708 as presented on CBA HSD 813B2. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved in second. It's been moved and seconded to consider HSD 813B2, item number 114. Councilmember Nelson, you're recognized to speak to your amendment.
All right, thank you very much. My proposal would expand access to free on-demand comprehensive substance use disorder treatment, which includes, per the National Institute on Drug Abuse, a physical and psychological evaluation, medical detox, behavioral therapy, peer counseling, case management, and usually comes with a few weeks of aftercare of counseling. And it's intended to fill a gap in services by creating a resource for our contracted service providers to get their clients into a certified state licensed residential or intensive outpatient treatment facility, after which the city would pay the bill on a case-by-case basis until funding is depleted. And this version of this CBA is responsive to comments made by Council President Juarez by indicating our intent that HSD work with tribal and indigenous-led organizations to encourage that tribally operated treatment facilities be included on this list that service providers will have access to, and that we find future ways to cooperate in addressing this mutual public health crisis. As I've said before, this will not require an additional FTE, and I don't believe it'll be complicated to set up. The executive, including HSD Director Kim, CBO Director Dingley, Deputy Mayors Washington and Burgess, and Mayor Harrell is supportive. So thank you very much. I do have to acknowledge that, yes, this is new, but at the same time, so is fentanyl. It is the most dangerous drug to hit our streets ever. And we have to do something. We have to up our game here. And what we see is that the existing treatment services that we have do treat opioid use disorder, but they do not treat the combination of drugs that most people are dying of, which is fentanyl and methamphetamine. And so we have to expand our treatment options and methods. So I want to read something. The Seattle Times they ran an editorial last week in support of my proposal that states, quote, treatment dollars are especially needed as the city goes about enforcing an ordinance that made public drug use a gross misdemeanor. The goal of the legislation was not to punish, but to provide structured pathways to those in need of help. And the ordinance, that's end quote. The ordinance also requires diversion, and lead case managers need someplace to send people to treatment. And that is why PDA Director Lisa Dugard supports this, as well as so many other service providers, including Sharon Lee. Just got an email from her this morning. So I was a little bit caught off guard yesterday when asked about the length of time Medicaid patients have to wait to get into rehab, because I was going off of anecdotal information that I've gathered over the course of a couple of years working on this. And didn't get the precise number, but I can say that research shows that a person's readiness to enter treatment is the best predictor for long-term recovery. And so in my mind, it doesn't really matter if the average length of time is 1 month or 6 weeks or, a few weeks, whatever, because what really matters is that somebody gets in as soon as they make the decision to go. And so that means it has to be as immediate as possible. And that's why on demand is so key. And so I hope you I hope you haven't had this experience, but many people out there have, of a family member who's been struggling with addiction for a long time, maybe one night calls you up and says the words that you've been waiting to hear for a long time, which is, I need help, I'm ready to try treatment. And if you were to hear that, chances are you drop everything and look up the nearest treatment facility and get them there right away and hand over the insurance card and then pay the bill when treatment was finished. That is the way it's most likely to be successful. And I'm just trying to enable our contracted service providers to be able to do the same thing that you would do for a family member in the case of their clients, residents at permanent supportive housing, whatever, when they say, all right, I've had enough, I'm scared, I want to try treatment. So that is what this proposal would do. And I really thank you for your consideration. Before I stop talking, though, however, I do want to I want to thank my co-sponsors for hanging in there with me, Council Members Peterson and Strauss, as well as Council President Juarez. Thank you very much. And also Mayor Harrell and his whole team for being supportive. Also want to thank Ann Gorman from Central Staff for her hard work on this since last year. And also Jeremy Moan and Stephen Ellis, who were leads in my office on this for a long time. And then finally, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge and thank the stakeholders that I've spent a lot of time talking to, and also the constituents that have encouraged me to keep on fighting for just expanding our toolbox of options to be able to help folks now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Nelson. I'm not seeing additional hands. I'll chime in on this one. I'm going to be supporting this item today. I did raise concerns and have been working with Councilmember Nelson over the last 2 months on this item. I think that, again, in search of common ground, there is an interest in ensuring that we reduce any barriers when someone needs access to treatment. To the degree that this can offer additional access to treatment, I'll be supporting this item today. I do have a number of questions, and those questions and concerns I'm hoping that the sponsor will be able to continue to track down in terms of implementation and operation of this. I think that this does put the city in a very new position to be a payer of services, a reimburser of services that we have not served in before. It almost makes us like a private payer or a third-party administrator of funds for direct recovery services. And I'm hopeful that the comments that have been made about how this will not take from other areas within HSD are accurate, that it does not need additional staffing, and this will result in a simple invoicing process within HSD, though I'm cautious about that optimism because it, to me, seems like an entire new line of service that the city is entering into. That said, if it can reduce barriers to getting people into treatment, I will be supportive of it. My hope is that in future conversations between the city and the county, there can be additional work done to work in partnership with the entity over at King County Public Health, BHRD, I believe is the acronym. And I'm going to thank Ann Gorman for all the work that she did, along with Melanie Cray in my office, to try to understand if there were other areas to plug into to provide additional services for inpatient detox treatment. It sounds like there's few, and the need is from community that we hear a lot about is much bigger on the outpatient side, but to the degree that there is a need for additional inpatient services and additional funding needed there, perhaps this could be a value add. So as this gets stood up, my hope is that this is done in partnership with King County as we think about operating it or operationalizing this, and any greater efficiencies that can be gleaned from the deployment of this pilot. And finally, I thank you, Councilmember Nelson, for the subsequent conversations that you've had. When we initially chatted in late September, it didn't sound like there was much of any sort of stakeholder engagement on the revised process that has been outlined and evolved over the last 2 months. And now you have a handful, I would venture to say half a dozen entities that have expressed support. So that's exciting. And I hope that those future relationships result in informing the evolution of this concept as it's deployed, because engaging directly with frontline providers who have the direct experience of having no place to take people, no landing zone, whether they are a human service provider or a firefighter. Everybody has uniformly said they need more places to take people. So if this can help with that, along with standing up the crisis care levy, supported centers, along with any of the investments that public health is able to continue to expand given their revenue crisis as well, it's all about value added. So I'll be supporting this item here today and look forward to hearing more about the operationalization, if that's a word, of this item.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you, Councilmember, and congratulations. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll on the adoption of item 114, HSD 813B2?
Councilmember Herbold,
Yes.
Council President Juarez,
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis,
Yes.
Councilmember Morales,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Aye.
Councilmember Peterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Sawant,
Yes.
Councilmember Strauss,
Yes.
Chair Mosqueda,
Aye.
9 in favor, none opposed.
Thank you very much. The motion carries, and amendment item number 114 carries. All right,
Thank you.
there's a subsequent part to this. So let's continue this conversation with the statement of legislative intent, item number 115.
Item 115, HSD 813 SA2. This is a statement of legislative intent that rides alongside the previous action. This requests that the Human Services Department provide reports related to funding for substance use disorder. This is also sponsored by Councilmember Nelson, who is joined by Councilmembers Peterson and Strauss.
Thank you. Councilmember Nelson, would you like to move your amendment?
Yes, I move to amend Council Bill 120708 as presented on slide HSD 813SA2. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Councilmember Nelson, you are recognized to speak to your amendment.
Thanks. So basically, because this is a pilot, we need to find out how well it works. And so first of all, this slide requests that by August 1st to 2024, HSD reports on the balance of funding allocated in CBA HSD 1813B and the number of individuals who were referred to SUD treatment according to the CBA's rubric and definitions, and the number of individuals who have completed treatment to date. So in other words, we need to track the balance ongoing because we don't want to run out and still have service providers out there trying to get people into treatment. So that is basic sort of fiscal bookkeeping responsibility. And I want to make sure people understand that we are not asking for private information about how people did in treatment or anything like that. We just want to have some sense of the numbers, how many people were referred and which organizations did so. So that's the basic sort of technical information that the slide requests, and the HSD should also contain the following information. As I noted before, responsive to Council President's Juarez's wishes, the language here says a description of HSD's engagement with tribal and indigenous-led organizations to identify opportunities for future coordination regarding the provision of treatment as described in CBA HSD 813B, and a description of the outcomes of that engagement. There are other things in here that you can read on your own, but basically this is a pretty technical slide asking for some basic reporting. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there any additional comments on this? Okay, thank you for bringing this forward, and similar to the other one, I will be voting yes on this. Would say also colleagues and relative to the Seattle Times editorial board on this concept, this is exactly the type of investments that I thought were necessary prior to the passage of the new drug ordinance, to ensure that there's places to bring people, that there's sufficient places, would have been, I think, an important investment prior to the passage of that, and happy to support the statement of legislative intent here, as I'm hopeful that it will inform the future evolution of the policy as we just described in the previous amendment. Seeing no additional comments, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll on the adoption of item number 115, HSD 813SA2.
Councilmember Herbold,
Yes.
Council President Juarez,
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis,
Yes.
Councilmember Morales,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Aye.
Councilmember Peterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Sawant,
Yes.
Councilmember Strauss,
Yes.
Chair Mosqueda,
Aye.
9 in favor, none opposed.
Thank you so much. The motion carries. And amendment number 115 is adopted. All right, moving on, Councilmember Strauss, we have amendments, 2 amendments that are yours. I think they're mutually exclusive, but maybe I can ask you if you'd like me to ask central staff to tee them up together before we make a motion.
Thank you, Chair. They are mutually exclusive, which was also my team name when I did the 7048 in 2018, excuse me. And if you want to tee them both up at the same time, that's probably the easiest, because if one goes, then the other does not need to go.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Councilmember Strauss. I'll turn to central staff to walk us through amendments 116 and 117.
Great. Those items are S.6C or S.6D. I will just say both items are providing funding for the same purpose. So it is both, in both cases, it would be providing $250,000 to the Department of Transportation for Ballard Avenue Cafe Street and Ballard Brewery District improvements. S.6C would be funded by reducing $100,000 general fund contribution to the emergency fund, and it uses funds that were freed up in the year-end supplemental through underspend in the mayor's office. So that would be adding a total of $250,000 to SDOT's 2024 budget for this purpose. The distinction between option C and option D is in option D, it is also adding that $150,000 from the 2023 underspend from the mayor's office, and the remaining $100,000 would be provided through imposing a proviso on $100,000 in SDOT's existing 2024 or the base budget for SDOT in the urban planning category.
Excellent. Councilmember Strauss, you have 2 amendments that would fund the same body of work. I'm happy to turn it to you to describe it, or if you have one that's your preference, you're welcome to identify that one, and we could start with that one. Obviously, I think we've had a chance to talk about my concerns around the emergency reserves, and very much in favor of the proviso alternative that you've offered. So I'll leave it to you to decide if you still want to do a walkthrough of 6C, but obviously my preference is 6D, and hope that that still accomplishes the goal. So I'll turn it to you, Councilmember, if you would like to move one of these items.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm going to still move forward with C first, and then if that fails to get a majority vote, then we can move on to the proviso, which is option B, or D, I should say. Sorry. And so, colleagues, as I spoke this morning about this item, this was an item that went from, I mean, there's candidly $1 million worth of changes and fixes that can be made. I scaled that back down to 500,000. This request right now is for 250,000, which is below the base minimum ability, but I think we can stretch every dollar as far as possible and hope not cut corners, but patch over some of these potholes in a way that we can still accomplish the goal. And so the goal of this, because colleagues, we have funded this work over the last number of years, is to finalize the interim changes on Ballard Avenue, which is the Cafe Street pilot, and incorporate design standards into SDOT's Streets Illustrated so that it can be replicated more easily in other places. This has been a pilot because this is a street that it is not a through street. It ends at the Ballard Bridge and Market Street, and it's also in a commercial area. So we've been able to change it from a 2-directional street into a 1-directional street. We are in the process right now as we speak, adding a people lane, a lane that is dedicated for people in the space. We've also made changes to allow freight delivery, pickup, drop off, and additional ADA parking in and around Ballard Avenue. And this iterative project that's created a people lane is just one step away from creating that cafe street, like from finalizing this pilot that then allows us to incorporate into Streets Illustrated. And so as well, you know, when we're talking about the $1 million figure, that's also in bringing in items that increase pedestrian safety in industrial areas. Yes, Ballard Avenue is still an industrial street in many places. It's in a historic district in others. And so while there was not a lot of through traffic on Ballard Avenue, which made it ideal for a pilot, it also had some really incredible challenges, which is that it's in some places in the industrial zone, it's 1 block from the industrial zone, and other, like throughout the entire street, it's 1 block from a commercial district. It's in a historic district. And so there's just been so much work that's gone into this. I'd love to see that, and my whole, the reason I've been doing this work is to, so that we can have it across the city, and that SDOT can come out and show the community a plan for what a cafe street in their neighborhood would look like, rather than reacting to a statement like, where's the parking going to be? Are there cars? Like, you know, all of the worries that people have about making changes like this, we've taken the time to make sure that we're getting it right. And this budget item before us right now is finalizing this so that we can have it into Streets Illustrated and turn this pilot into a permanent project. So with that, option C it's the $100,000 comes from the emergency reserves, and then option D is a proviso within existing SDOT budget, which I believe Cal said yesterday of it's $100,000 out of a $4 million line item that Cal and SDOT were going back and forth in their chat. So with that, Chair, do you want me to move the amendment? Did I talk too much?
You, it's okay. We did it a little bit in reverse, but that's fine. I think it gives folks a sense of the funding goal. And now the question is just the funding source. So if you still would like to move 6C, you are welcome to do so.
Great, then I move to amend Council Bill 120708 as presented on CBA S.006C1. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Any additional comments on that, Councilmember Strauss?
No, thank you though.
Okay. Councilmember Morales, please go ahead.
Thank you. I first want to thank Councilmember Strauss. This is an idea that I think we've been talking about a lot in my district. Folks in Columbia City, Hillman City, Beacon Hill, down in Othello really want to see this kind of idea come to the South End. So I appreciate the work that's happened in Ballard to get us this far, and really want to see the idea of you know, including this as part of our Streets Illustrated design manual. That said, I mentioned to Councilmember Strauss earlier today the idea of this coming out of the emergency fund is something that I'm struggling with, particularly given the crisis that we know is coming, that we're already in and we'll be looking at next year. So I really can't support the emergency fund as the source for this. But I do want to let Councilmember Strauss know I'm really committed to working together on a legislative approach to be able to do this next year, and would also support perhaps in the upcoming transportation levy and a discussion to secure funding that can really make cafe streets a reality across the city. And we'll be supporting the next amendment if this one fails. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Peterson.
Thank you, Chair Mosqueda. And my thoughts are exactly those of Councilmember Morales. I'll be supporting the next item if that's what it comes to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Peterson. Are there any additional comments? I would say that my comments are the exact same as Councilmember Peterson and Councilmember Morales's. I think that there's support for the investment and the vision that's been articulated by the sponsor. Clearly, support from this council in the past for this corridor and the vision of activating and pedestrianizing and encouraging patronage at local small businesses. And to Councilmember Strauss's point yesterday, I think that this could be and is a destination point for people around the city. So this has a global impact or opportunity to provide an option for people to come and see this corridor, whether or not you live there. So I think it's a benefit to the city. I will say my preference is that we do not touch the emergency reserves. It's been tempting. I've thought about it a few times. I even dipped into it once before there was an additional emergency fund source found or an error found that allowed for us to dip into that fund to prevent us from dipping into the emergency reserves. But and I was just looking to see if CBO has weighed in at all. We've been really trying to provide a joint effort to not dip into the reserves or the emergency fund at all. So given that the proviso, I think, is a viable path, the questions that I was asking yesterday, I feel alleviated to know the larger scope of the funding pool and that the proviso is a minimal or the minimus amount, and that could be a really effective way to fund this desire. So if the vote does not go forth on this item, I would strongly encourage folks to vote yes on 6D to support the investments as articulated by Councilmember Strauss. Councilmember Strauss, any additional comments on this?
Nope.
Okay, great. Let's go forth and vote then. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll on the adoption of item 116?
Councilmember Herbold,
Abstain.
Council President Juarez,
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis,
Yes.
Councilmember Morales,
No.
Councilmember Nelson,
Oh, excuse me.
Councilmember
Abstain.
Nelson. Abstain, thank you. Councilmember Peterson,
No.
Councilmember Sawant,
No.
Councilmember Strauss,
Yes.
Chair Mosqueda.
No.
3 in favor, 5 opposed, and 1 abstention.
Thank you very much. I think, Madam Clerk, I think there was 2 abstentions. Okay, I think it was 3 in favor, 4 opposed, 2 abstentions. Is that correct?
I had 1 abstention with
I
5
noted
in favor.
I noted Councilmember Herbold and Councilmember Nelson as abstaining.
I heard Councilmember Herbold say nay, which I thought was a
Yeah, I
no.
heard
I
abstain.
abstained.
Councilmember Herbold, how do you vote?
I abstained. Thank you.
It's an abstention instead of a no, nay? Okay,
Yeah,
apologies.
that's okay.
So 3 in favor, 4 opposed, 2 abstentions.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The motion fails and the amendment does not advance, but luckily we have an alternative. Councilmember Strauss, would you like to move Amendment 60?
Yes, thank you, colleagues. I hope to earn your support on this, the same amendment with a slightly different funding source. So I move to amend Council Bill 120708 as presented on CBA S.006 D1.
Thank you very much. It has been moved and seconded. Any additional comments on this? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll on the adoption of item number, Councilmember Nelson, please go ahead.
So I just have to admit that I paused there to figure out my vote because I was struggling to track the differences between the two and just landed on abstaining because of the emergency fund issue. But I just wanted to voice my strong support for this and thank you very much for bringing it forward.
Sorry, Councilmember. Yeah, I think I heard your comment. I would just want to assure you that even if you, what did you say? If you were planning on voting yes on that last one, it wouldn't have mattered because a split vote still makes the amendment fail. So Amendment 6D is still appropriate to put in front of us. Okay, great. I'm seeing you nod. Thank you. Okay, sorry, I was checking on the door. You might have heard the doorbell ring. Sorry to be out of breath here. Let's go ahead, Councilmember Strauss, unless you have any additional comments on item number 6D in front of us.
No further comments. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, great. Let's go ahead. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll on the adoption of item number 117?
Councilmember Herbold.
Councilmember Mosqueda. I don't believe it was moved yet. I believe Councilmember Strauss did discuss it, but it has not been moved at this point.
Okay.
I'll do it again.
It was moved.
Yeah, I think we had Peterson and Herbold second one. I'll note for the record, Councilmember Strauss moved it, and then Councilmember Peterson, I believe, was the first to come off mute to second it. So we're
Sorry,
good,
the clerks and I both missed the it getting moved. So sorry about
that. No problem. We're getting towards the end, folks. I promise. I see you, Council President. I see you. Let's keep going. Madam Clerk, if you could please call the roll on the adoption of item number 117.
Councilmember Herbold.
Yes.
Council President Juarez.
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis.
Yes.
Councilmember Morales.
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson.
Aye.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yes.
Councilmember Sawant.
Yes.
Councilmember Strauss.
Yes.
Chair Mosqueda.
Aye.
9 in favor, none opposed.
Thank you very much. The motion carries and amendment item 117 is adopted. Moving on, congratulations. Item number 118, please. Oh, excuse me, 118 is no longer in front of us. Is that correct? Because the funding source did not pass this morning?
It passed.
It did pass this morning.
It passed.
Against my objection, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and consider it anyway. Excuse me, Councilmember Peterson.
Mine too. Should have abstained.
I have revisionist history on that one, and it's only been a few hours. Okay, Councilmember Peterson, 1 second. Let me ask central staff to describe this, please. Please go ahead. Okay. Allie?
Okay, sorry. Item 118, SDOT 101A would add $1.5 million of general fund and $80,000 of real estate excise tax to the Department of Transportation's structures major maintenance capital improvement program project, and adds $480,000 of general fund to the Department of Transportation for expansion of the school zone camera program. This is funded by reducing the contribution to the Seattle City Employees Retirement System to the actuarial rate. And as discussed previously, the amendment to the resolution that establishes that rate that supports this spending was passed by the committee earlier this morning, or recommended for approval.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Peterson, would you like to move your amendment?
Thank you, Chair. Colleagues, I move to amend Council Bill 120708 as presented on SDOT 101A2. Or 101A3, excuse me.
It's been moved. Is there a second? I believe I heard a second from Councilmember Morales. Okay. Thank you very much, council members. Please go ahead. Councilmember Peterson, you're recognized to speak to your amendment.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for amending and approving Resolution 32114 earlier today. That earlier action is linked to this council budget action to invest in bridge maintenance and school zone traffic safety. Thank you to co-sponsors of this council budget action, council members Herbold, Morales, and Nelson. This council budget action deploys the savings from our earlier action to bring Seattle's bridge safety maintenance investment up to the bare minimum recommended by our city auditor. But that's not all. The CBA also provides the startup costs toward the council's previous direction last year to double the school zone traffic safety camera program. We already know the benefits of this pedestrian safety tool, discouraging reckless speeding, removing the need for police to pursue speeders, and overall improving safety for school children walking and biking to and from their school. The council has previously approved those two investment priorities. This CBA would enable council to reiterate them to actually get it done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Peterson. Is there any additional comments? Councilmember Strauss, please go ahead.
Thank you. Very similar to my comments earlier, I love everything in this amendment, and the funding sources give me a lot of heartburn. I think it's very dangerous to be playing with the city employees' retirement systems. I think that creates a bow wake that is very dangerous for us in the out years. And this is, again, just something that I really support. I would love to support it. The funding source is a problem for me. But thank you, Councilmember Peterson, for your continued advocacy on bridges.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Strauss. Similarly, I am I'm going to continue to vote no against this just because of the continued fund source concern. I know that the funding source was already decided earlier today, but I am going to again reiterate that the lower rate here will require a fierce or steep increase for contributions in future years to adjust for that 2022 impact that the SERS board and actuaries have already identified and outlined. So I'm going to maintain the position that I had from the analysis earlier, and again urge us to vote this down so that we could ensure that the funding was still available for the SERS investments. And again, caution folks for future years, there will be a steeper cliff for payments into the fund, the retirement fund, if we do continue to lower this. So clearly I support the investments, but I also have serious concerns about whether or not the funding will get deployed, given that we did not see the city implement the cameras in the previous year. I have questions about whether or not we're going to be able to continue to make the commitments that are outlined here. So I'll be voting no today on this one again. Any additional comments?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Madam President.
Just a quick point of order. My notes reflect this morning on item number 17 that Councilmember Peterson put before us. My notes reflect that you and Councilmember Sawant abstained.
I believe, Councilmember, you are referring to the LTGO bond issue. I did abstain with that with Councilmember Sawant, and that was item number 18.
Uh-oh. Okay.
I will defer to the clerks though, because I just want to make sure that item number 17, which this was in regards to, correct, Councilmember Peterson, earlier today, item number 17 is the one that I misremembered its passage.
Okay, so.
Chair Mosqueda, we can confirm with the clerks. I and a couple other analysts are also tracking votes, and we also have you noted as abstaining from item 17 and 18. So both the resolution.
Did I?
Yeah.
Then I will retain my vote and abstain.
Okay, well, I'll tell you why I'm asking for clarification, because believe it or not, I actually keep track of this so I can understand where, because I voted no. So I was trying to understand with the resolution, but it passed. So now this amendment is in front of us in regards to the resolution that passed this morning, in which I voted no and a couple other people abstained. I just wanted to clarify the record on that one.
Yeah, and my notes, unfortunately, I started taking handwritten notes on item number 18. Can someone please remind me what the total vote was on item number 17?
Chair Mosqueda, this is Linda. On item 18, I had 7 in favor, 0 opposed, and 2 abstained.
Okay, and item 17, I think is what was in question.
Did you want the vote on 17 also?
Yes, please.
I had 5 in favor, 2 opposed, and 2 abstentions.
Okay, so on the, that, thank you, Madam Clerk. On the item number 17, which relates to this item, correct, Councilmember Peterson?
Yeah, I think there were 2 votes. One was to amend it, and then we had to then pass it. So there were 2
Yeah.
different vote counts. So I think the final vote on it was what the clerk just said: 5 yes, 2 no, 2 abstention. But now this is about the CBA to spend the money.
That's right. And I just wanted to thank you for reminding me, Council President, about that abstention. Either if I had voted no or to abstain, it still would not have changed the outcome of the vote on item number 17. And I did raise objections to the use of the SERS fund source and going lower than the SERS agreed upon contribution rate. So I still have concerns about the ongoing fund source here as articulated by Councilmember Strauss. But thank you for the reminder on that. Councilmember Sawant, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I think Councilmember Peterson may have already clarified that, but just to reiterate, I believe what happened was we voted no on the amendment, but abstained on the bill as a whole.
That's correct.
Yeah. And I think that's significant because amendment was where the substantive disagreement was.
Thank you both.
Yeah.
And on the amendment is where I raised concerns, and then I abstained on the underlying bill. Okay. And I just got a message confirming that from central staff too. Councilmember Peterson, this is fun, isn't it? Would you like to add?
Well, if I may, Chair, or if people are done, I can close it out.
You can. I'm just going to reiterate for the knowledge of the body here. I will be voting no on this amendment. Thank you.
Okay.
Councilmember Peterson, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Mosqueda. And again, thank you to council members who have in the past supported bridge maintenance and the school zone safety cameras. And that's what the CBA is doing. It's actually, it's accomplishing both of those in one council budget action. And just to respond, just to lift up the central staff memo from October 11 on this topic, using the expert actuary rate, quote, the city retirement system would remain on course to meet 100% funded status. So, end quote. So let's invest in bridge maintenance and the school zone traffic safety measures now that we're at this point in the budget process. It's really important to me for the overall budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Peterson. Okay, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll on the adoption of amendment number 118?
Councilmember Herbold,
Yes.
Council President Juarez,
No.
Councilmember Lewis,
Yes.
Councilmember Morales,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Aye.
Councilmember Peterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Sawant,
No.
Councilmember Strauss,
Abstain.
Chair Mosqueda,
No.
5 in favor, 3 opposed with 1 abstention.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. The motion carries and amendment 118 SSAT 101A3 is adopted. Moving on to item 119.
Item 119, SDOT 202A would proviso $150,000 in the Department of Transportation budget for construction of a sidewalk using alternative construction methods on the south side of North 87th Street from First Avenue Northwest to Palatine Avenue North. This is sponsored by Councilmember Strauss, who's joined by Council President Juarez and Councilmember Peterson.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Strauss, you are recognized to move the amendment.
Thank you. I'm looking off to the side of my screen because I'm actually just counting the blocks that are connected right now and don't have a full connection because this one block does not have any sidewalks on it. Just 1 second here. So we have 1, 2, 3 blocks in between 3rd Avenue Northwest and Greenwood Avenue Northwest. 2 of them have sidewalks, 1 of them does not. This is the one that does not. Colleagues, just for complete transparency here, there is a alley vacation that will be coming before us for this block where the plan is to add a sidewalk here. And what I've discussed with the owners of this property is that I would be adding an additional item onto their alley vacation for the same amount of money that it will cost to put in the sidewalk alternative. Because as we know from permitting and construction timelines, that the likelihood that the sidewalk will be put in place within 5 years is highly unlikely, as well as one of the aspects of this alternative sidewalk here is that the adjacent property owner needs to create an interim use on their property between now and construction. And so currently it's a vacant lot that is underutilized by the neighborhood because it's fenced off. And so there's a couple moving pieces to this. One is that the vacant lot has to be publicly accessible. Number 2, any funds from the city that are used to create an interim sidewalk using an alternative will then be added onto their alley vacation. And something that's very interesting also, last bit about fun sidewalk facts with Strauss is that the drainage is already in place on this block. There's already a curb cut. And so that is why it is such a low dollar figure for being able to create an entire block of sidewalk.
Thank you, Councilmember Strauss. I think we still need to move the amendment. Is that accurate?
Sorry about that. I didn't
You
read
did.
my script. I just started talking.
That's
I
okay.
move to amend Council Bill 120708 as presented on CBA S.202A2. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Strauss, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
I would love to earn your support on this.
Is there any additional comments from council members? Hearing. Well, let me ask one more question. The same analysis applies here in terms of the universe of S.dot dollars, 150 being provisoed for this specific sector, no feedback or input on what the impact would be at this juncture.
I don't remember what Cal said, but at the end of the day, this money will be coming back to the city through additional public improvements that will be required, whether it's additional sidewalks elsewhere or yeah, we'll be made whole here.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Strauss. Seeing no additional comments, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll on the adoption of item 119 S.202A2?
Councilmember Herbold,
Yes.
Council President Juarez,
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis,
Yes.
Councilmember Morales, Councilmember Morales, Councilmember Nelson,
Aye.
Councilmember Peterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Sawant,
Abstain.
Councilmember Strauss,
Yes.
Chair Mosqueda.
Aye.
7 in favor with 1 abstention.
Thank you very much. The motion carries and the amendment is adopted. Moving on to item number 120.
Item 120 is SPD 2A. This would add $4.5 million of general fund to the Seattle Police Department's 2024 budget for a special event staffing premium and to implement a memorandum of understanding with the Seattle Police Officers Guild and place as a proviso. This is balanced by funding that was held in planning reserves for this purpose. This is sponsored by Council Member Herbold, who is joined by Council Members Lewis and Council President Juarez.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Herbold, you're recognized to move the amendment.
Thank you. I move to amend Council Bill 120708 as presented on CBA SPD 002A2.
Second.
Thank you.
It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Herbold, would you like to speak to your amendment?
Sure. Thanks. And just for start for clarification's sake, because of some of the public comment that we heard in the public hearing, this is not the new SPOG contract. That is a body of work that is still being negotiated. This is a side MOU to fulfill separate objectives of LRPC, specifically the objectives of allowing for the community responder program, the dual dispatch program, allowing for the parks rangers to not only be in downtown parks, and then also allowing for hopefully in time more civilianization of special events. So the MOU supports the launch of the Care Department's dual dispatch program, and as I mentioned yesterday, I think it's really important to lift the specific language in the MOU. It says officers can clear the scene as they determine to be appropriate, and that they do not need to be, well, this is the language. It says, it doesn't say that they do not need to be present at the scene. I have confirmed that's what the MOU language means. It says that officers can clear the scene as they determine to be appropriate. So the language as they determine to be appropriate means that they can clear the scene without physically being there. And so if the community responder gets there first, SPD does not need to be physically present in order for the community responder to begin their work. In addition, as I mentioned, the Parks Rangers are, I think, shared vision to ensure that they're serving in parks all across the city. And there was, prior to this MOU, there was an actual geographic limitation in the contract, and that only allowed Parks Rangers to be deployed in downtown parks. Given the fact that the council has used the park district renewal to significantly expand the park, we want to make sure that these additional park rangers can be deployed throughout the city. And then lastly, the citywide officer availability to strengthen staffing at special events. The proposal is to use a new special events staffing system, allows officers to volunteer to staff special events rather than drafting officers to staff special events. This current approach for filling vacant positions relies on this draft system, which has impact on officer morale, department planning, and citywide staffing. Again, there is language in the MOU that has allowed the chief to use more flexibility in making a determination of when officers need to be used versus when unsworn civilian staff can be used. There were previously in the SPOG contract, there was language that was very limiting to the ability of SPD to use non-sworn officers. This MOU accomplishes our goal of creating greater flexibility so that we don't always have to be using sworn officers, recognizing that that means that there needs to be the hiring of more civilians to fulfill that role. But I think this is again, a shared goal of civilianizing more police department responses.
Thank you. Are there additional comments? Any additional comments? Councilmember Sawant.
Thank you. I will be voting no on this budget amendment approving $4.5 million MOU with the Seattle Police Officers Guild, which gives officers extra money on top of their overtime for attending special events, including protests. Most concerning, this MOU does not include any agreement on police accountability. Every time the city discusses accountability, the political establishment says it's impossible because of the SPOG contract, but then the political establishment goes ahead and signs MOUs without SPOG, providing the money first and only, with SPOG providing the money first and only then trying to negotiate, or at least saying that they will negotiate for accountability, which in reality never happens, and then say that they just couldn't get an agreement. So I just don't think that's the correct approach, and I'll be voting no. Thank you.
Are there additional comments on this item? Okay. I will also make some comments then. Colleagues, I no longer am on LRPC, and I stepped down from being on the Labor Relations Policy Committee because I have a concern around wanting to ensure that the whole scope of all of the contracts that are in front of us are included so that we understand the universe of contracts that still need to be negotiated. Before I continue, Councilmember Herbold, did you have some comments that you'd like to offer?
I'd like to follow you depending on what it is you say.
Okay.
So if I could.
Okay, I will come to you as the final speaker on this item for our custom. I want to reiterate that as the budget chair, I think it's important that we look at the full scope of all of the contracts that are in front of the council that are yet to be voted on. We do not have the full SPOG contract in front of us. This is a temporary and partial component. We still do not have the firefighter contract in front of us, and we definitely don't have the coalition of city union contracts, which we've heard much about over the last few months, and much concern around the need to ensure that that contract helps recognize the increased cost to employees for living in this region, but also the work that they've done during the COVID crisis and that ongoing pandemic impact, the impact and then the need to continue to serve a growing population, but growing needs within that community warrant a significant increase and investment into our city workers. So as the budget chair, one of my concerns was looking at the macro of whether or not all of the contracts in front of us were going to yield a number that the city could accurately fulfill. And part of my concern as a budget chair was this discussion around having a partial SPOG agreement put in front of us. So number one, on budget, I have concerns as the budget chair. Number two, on strategy. I am going to be voting against this today because I do not believe that this is a strategic way to ensure that more of the accountability provisions that we all want to see, and I know that have been worked on very hard by the sponsor of this amendment, our chair of public safety, Councilmember Herbold, want to see those provisions go into place. While I recognize that this has a few of those critical accountability ordinance components included, I'm very concerned around a strategy that provides an award, an allowance, an extra fund for certain components of the accountability ordinance and not the full suite of it. I don't think that we have a full picture of how much those other accountability requirements will cost us. And if we put funding forward to the tune of, $8+ million over the life of this tentative agreement, I don't know what that's added to. And as the budget chair, that makes me very nervous about what the total universe of dollars will be, and offering up funding for a handful of accountability pieces without assurances that we're going to be able to get those additional accountability pieces in a final contract. Number 3, I think that the funding should be coming from within the Seattle Police Department's budget, because we know from our activities last year that there was about $20 million in new investments that were made in the department from the salary savings that were not deployed towards employment. As you recall, last year when we received the budget, there was about $40 million in salary savings. The mayor smartly chose to put $20 million of that into the general fund. We continued that effort, and in fact, we made it an ongoing investment into the general fund, because we know that the $40 million is not going to be used in the near term, is not necessary to accomplish the hiring plan or the retention and recruitment plan, which was also fully funded in the budget. So that $20 million of the 40 moved by the mayor, supported by us, and made permanent by us in last year's budget, still left $20 million in the Seattle Police Department's budget that I believe should be used in part to pay this temporary agreement. The request here is to allow for funding from the planning reserves to fund this contract, was just typical, but it's not typical for any other department to have that amount of funding just sitting there. So $20 million in last year's approved budget, much of which was going into one-time investments that the department and the mayor's office had identified in their proposed budget that they sent over. So my suggestion would be that in order to fund the temporary agreement that's in front of us, a more appropriate fund source for this, instead of adding funding, would have been to request that funding come from the ongoing $20 million that is not being fully utilized for salaries within the Seattle Police Department's budget, and much of which is new funding that we authorized last year. And finally, I have some ongoing questions about the policy, but I'll pause there. Councilmember Herbold, if you have any other thoughts about that, and I'm happy to circle back to your original point around the dual district program.
Thank you. I just want to clarify again, this is not the SPOG contract. This is not a temporary SPOG contract. This is not the SPOG contract. This is a memorandum of understanding, and this might make your point even more acutely, Chair Mosqueda, but I just want to be clear without divulging any privileges of LRPC. The accountability elements that we are working on as part of that discussion are not part of this MOU. This MOU has no accountability elements. The only elements is the financial premium for special events, the flexibility of the chief to assign non-sworn officers to special events, the flexibility around the care department and how the civilians are going to be deployed, and the parks rangers. The MOU is a separate track from the conversations around the SPOG contract as a whole. So just really want to make that clear for the viewing public looking at this MOU, because what I heard was that some of the accountability elements are in there. None of them are in there. That is completely on a separate track. And I wish we would have gotten more done this year. And I really hope that new council takes the efforts of this council, the 5 members who serve on LRPC, get that work done. Hope to take it seriously. Want to also lift up the fact that as a sort of a safeguard on that negotiation is that the consent decree ruling by Judge Robart requires that within 30 days of reaching a tentative agreement with SPOG, regarding the renewal of the SPOG CBA, that the city must file with the court an analysis of that tentative agreement and its effect on SPD's accountability and review system. And so the court will have an opportunity to look at the work of the LRPC as it relates specifically to the accountability ordinance and the commitments that the council has made both in the accountability ordinance and in the subsequent resolution that the council passed with the last contract. And the court will have the opportunity to opine on whether or not those negotiations were successful in that area. So just really wanted to clarify that in case there's anybody out looking for what accountability elements were included in this MOU. Those things are all on a separate track. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think I was using the term accountability sort of interchangeably with the alternative models that I think there's broad support for. And having to pay for some of those models that there's broad support for is obviously frustrating, when I think there's joint interest by the executive and the legislative branch to move in these directions. But now we have to pay for those, in addition to then the SPOG contract not being completed yet, and us having no assurance about how many of those accountability components from the original ordinance will ultimately be in the contract. We know that SPOG is going to be demanding additional payment for some of those pieces. I wish that wasn't the case. I hope that the state legislature is able to help us with that. So in future negotiations, we don't have accountability being bargained. But again, I think the point, as you noted, is well made, that we still need to have a full contract in front of us. We don't know if that contract will include the accountability pieces. We don't know how much we will have to be required to pay for those components. And here we are paying for components of alternative models and new delivery of services that are common sense, but we're still having to pay for those in that MOU. So just again, from that strategy perspective, I don't believe that this gives us leverage, additional leverage at the city for the joint interest that we have in seeing those accountability pieces ultimately be stood up, without also then putting millions more into that contract and not having those millions come out of the existing SPD budget, when we know that there's 20 million that's in new funding in last year's budget that was not, held in salary and instead is being deployed into one-time uses. I think that would be a better place to reach in to pull to pay for this MOU. And again, I still am raising concerns around the strategy of doing this now versus seeing what the universe of payout will have to be for a future contract that includes hopefully more of the accountability. Thank you, Councilmember Herbold, for the clarification. Council President Juarez.
Thank you. I just want to reiterate what Councilmember Herbold said, and I just want to caution that we're getting really close to talking about some collective bargaining issues that are subject to labor negotiations. So as still a negotiating member of the LRPC, and I want to go back to what Mr. Doss shared with us yesterday when we talked about the need for this, that this MOU is for emergent needs and that it did three things. And it is a side agreement on dual dispatch, the expanded use of park rangers, and the number of special events filled by sworn officers and civilian staff. So there's really I just don't think the place here is to just start discussing, and I understand you were using accountability differently, but those of us, and you were there too for a while, Councilmember Mosqueda, before you stepped down, how we got to this side agreement that would go from October, and Councilmember Herbert, correct me if I'm wrong, October 1, 2023 to January 2nd, 2026, which would be for 2 years. So I just, again, want to underscore that what Councilmember Herbert is saying is that this isn't about the contract, the consent, all those things that are over here. This is about addressing an emergent need now. And it isn't about the leveraging or SPOG contract. And that's why there's kind of like a carve out for this emergent need now, because we're operating on a contract that expired in 2020. And so that's my concern. And Councilmember Herbert, if I misspoke, please correct me. But those are my understanding from our many discussions, and then another briefing and some cautionary notes that we received from Mr. Doss. So thank you. And I will be supporting this.
Thank you, Council President. And absolutely understand the confidentiality of collective bargaining, strongly support that, oppose all the Freedom Foundation attempts to undermine that. Without disclosing anything confidential, I think it should be no one's surprise that community is expecting us to have a contract that ultimately includes accountability ordinance components in it. And the tie that I'm trying to make here is that we are putting additional funding, millions of dollars, new additive funding to the department without knowing what the total cost of the contract will be. So we're in essence losing some leverage on some of the pieces where we know we have commonality. The community supports us wanting to move forward on this, but we are putting these dollars forward without knowing what the total universe of dollars is going to be for the SPOG contract ultimately. And I think we lose leverage in giving them additional funding now without eking out some of those other accountability pieces that we will ultimately want to see in the SPOG contract. I'm not part of that negotiation, and I do not think that this offers us a full picture of what the universe of dollars will be for this investment overall when it comes to SPOG. As a complete picture later on, I think that it is not a good strategy in terms of the leverage that we could potentially maintain. And again, I have a number of concerns. I guess I will just air those now. And Councilmember Herbold, the risk of bringing up policy, because I know you are the policy wonk on this, I will just raise some of the concerns that I have about SPD still having to be the one to give alternative responders the permission to go on site. I referenced the Washington Post article a number of times that came up about concern around the dual dispatch model that still creates kind of this gatekeeper model that requires police to be the ones to then give permission to whether it's the case managers or housing connectors to come on site and be that person that then ultimately de-escalates the situation and doesn't have an officer responding in the first place. It would be ideal if we were freeing up those officers instead to go do something else. I think that there is a concern that the officer's responsibility is still to make the determination of who will make the initial direct contact. And a crisis responder does not approach the scene unless they are cleared to do so by an officer assessing the scene. The officer still holds that discretion to turn the call over to a crisis responder, but it's ultimately a gatekeeper role that the officer has. I think that this creates a concerning power dynamic when we have these restrictions on who is allowing alternative responders to enter a scene. And I do hope that we can continue to evolve this policy so that it's not supplementing police, but instead it's providing an alternative to police arriving on the scene first. And with that, I will note that just yesterday, we saw a Seattle Times article about a group of officers who responded to a crisis call of an intoxicated man, and they broke into the residence. They broke through a window, of an intoxicated man who was breaking a window and throwing things on the street. And the medics and the firefighters conducted the initial individual crisis response. SPD entered a different building, and 5 officers, including one with their who was armed with a high caliber semi-automatic rifle, broke down the wrong person's door, a woman's door, who was just about to enter the bath. And this is another example of where I think, especially on crisis calls that are not criminal in nature, where we need a crisis responder to be the first person, I would prefer to have that alternative versus a police supplement. So I'll be voting no on this from the strategy perspective, from the budget concerns, the concern that this doesn't come from within the 20 million in salary savings that's still sitting within the department being used on new investments, and some of those concerns that I outlined about alternative versus supplement. Councilmember Lewis, I think, and Council President Juarez, I'm not sure if it's an old hand.
Oh, old hand, sorry.
That's okay. Councilmember Lewis.
Councilmember Mosqueda, thank you so much. I don't disagree with several of the points you have raised about what our ideal 911 alternative response program would be like. What I would just posit is that the system that we have devised in partnership with the executive and that this memorandum of understanding makes possible is a really critical step in that direction. Chief Smith has made it really clear that her goal would be for the program over time to evolve to be more like programs in Denver and Albuquerque that are completely and entirely independent. But I would note that even in those systems, even with those responses, these 911 response alternative systems do not have a completely separate or antagonistic relationship with traditional law enforcement. Everybody is in the field on the same radio, triaging and responding to calls in an environment where they're all working together. So the program that we have in front of us, the CARE responder program, is a really critical first step that can evolve steadily over the course of its existence to be more independent and have that high utility that those other systems have. The other thing I would just mention that I think is an important part of this, because I get asked all the time, given that there is such a broad policy consensus and a broad public consensus on wanting these services, people ask all the time, like, why don't we have this? Why don't we have this? And when these other states have this? And, a lot of these other jurisdictions that have these systems are unfortunately, they're right to work states. They're states where nothing has to be bargained. In the state of Washington, we have very, very strong labor laws, and I'm very proud that we have strong labor laws and that we have strong unions. But there are occasions like this where that can pose an additional bit of work that we need to work through and memorialize in a document like this. So this is a very big step forward. I think it would slow down this work to a great extent were we not to approve this memorandum of understanding. I think it's an equitable agreement that gives more flexibility, that lifts up this important 911 alternative response work and other public safety employees who do work adjacent to what uniformed police do, to allow us to be more innovative and more dynamic and not send a gun and a badge to every single call for service, be it 911 or just other types of public service that the city provides. So for those reasons, I support this agreement, and I definitely strongly encourage my colleagues to do the same.
Okay, thank you so much. And thanks to Councilmember Lewis, Councilmember Herbold. I know you've been working on alternative responses, dual responses for a long time. Thank you for the additional information on this. All right, Councilmember Herbold, do you have any additional comments you'd like to make? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll on the adoption of amendment number 120?
Councilmember Herbold,
Yes.
Council President Juarez,
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis,
Yes.
Councilmember Morales,
Abstain.
Councilmember Nelson,
Aye.
Councilmember Peterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Sawant,
No.
Councilmember Strauss,
Yes.
Chair Mosqueda.
No.
6 in favor, 2 opposed, and 1 abstention.
Thank you so much. The motion carries, and amendment number 120 SPD 002A to pass. We're on our final amendment today. Council Member Peterson, I'm going to turn to central staff first, and then we'll turn to you. Please go ahead, Ellie.
Item 121, SPD 200A would impose a proviso on $250,000 of general fund in the Seattle Police Department's budget to reinstate a contract with Trulio or a similar service provider. This is sponsored by Councilmember Peterson, who's joined by Councilmember Herbold and Council President Juarez.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Peterson. Would you like to move your amendment?
Yes, thank you, Chair Mosqueda. Colleagues, I move to amend Council Bill 120708 as presented on SPD 200A2.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you so much. It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Peterson, would you like to speak to your amendment?
Thank you, Chair. Colleagues, this budget amendment is a proviso on SPD's discretionary budget in 2024 to require them to once again enter into a contract with a third-party service provider such as Trulio to assist in reviewing and analyzing police officer body camera footage. Ideally, the contract would have never been canceled earlier this year. I want to thank Councilmembers Herbold and Council President Juarez for co-sponsoring this amendment. Colleagues, I believe we can show unity in requiring this by voting yes on this proviso. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any additional comments on this? Councilmember Herbold, Vice Chair, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to support this budget action by Councilmember Peterson. I was disappointed that the contract was canceled. I am of the mind that the obligation to wear body-worn camera on the part of police officers was bargained, and it is, to use a strong word, ludicrous to think that the material from that body-worn camera would not be monitored and reviewed. And that was the basis of the withdrawing of the contract, was when SPOG leadership found out that this tool was reviewing the content from the cameras. And again, you can't just agree to wear body-worn cameras based on a hope that nobody's going to look at the material that's captured on the body-worn cameras. And again, I think this is a very useful tool for the police department in identifying trends for training and issues associated with fair and constitutional policing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any additional comments on this? Given some of the feedback that we've received from the ACLU of Washington, I am going to be a no on this today and encourage folks to take a look at that information from ACLU. Clearly, we have more work to do on making sure that there's technology that does not analyze language or sentiments that display racial or gender bias. And sometimes this has been specifically in reference to how AI systems have been used by police departments in the past. So on this one, I will be a no today. Any additional comments? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll on the adoption of item number 121 SPD 200A2.
Councilmember Herbold,
Yes.
Council President Juarez,
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis,
Yes.
Councilmember Morales,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Aye.
Councilmember Peterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Sawant,
Abstain.
Councilmember Strauss,
Yes.
Chair Mosqueda.
No.
7 in favor, 1 opposed, and 1 abstention.
Okay, thanks. The motion carries and the amendment is adopted. We have gotten through all of our amendments here today. I think that it's been a long day. It's 5:09. Councilmember Herbold asked yesterday if we'd be done by 5. We almost made it. Almost made it. But at this juncture, I think we are going to take Councilmember Herbold's item first tomorrow. We'll come back and discuss item number 28 that is on the agenda here today. And then we will get right into other items on the agenda. This also includes central staff. What am I forgetting that we were also going to discuss tomorrow besides items that are up for the fee, the tax, the revenue, the legislative changes to the transparency document?
Yeah, 8 amendments. 8 amendments.
Yeah, we will return to item, I think it was 22, On the agenda to take up Council Bill 120706 and the 8 amendments that were briefed today, and then we will move on to item 28, which is a briefing on the track 2 legislation and an update on the revenue stabilization work program.
Are those the 4 PowerPoints?
Yes, but we will do our best to draw on our snappiest, concise presentations, Council President Morris, just for you.
Our big PowerPoints.
Great. Well, at this juncture, I think we're at the end of our agenda. Colleagues, thank you so much. All of your amendments have enhanced this budget, and we will have the chance to walk through them and not walk through them. Central staff, don't have a heart attack. We will not read each item in again, but we will have a chance to vote on the final package on Monday. And just note that that final vote is coming. We give central staff a little bit of time before making the final vote, just to ensure that all the amendments, the 121 amendments that we voted on today, align with the budget and that we're fully valid before we take a final vote. I see Patty. Patty, you have a question?
I just wanted to assure everyone that when they see the agenda for tomorrow, it's going to look exactly the same as today, but we put a special provision in the agenda that just says that whatever we didn't address today, we will address tomorrow. So I don't want anyone to think that we're doing this all over again tomorrow, but the agenda will look the same.
Yeah. I'm going to make a formal motion to ensure that this item that we've been voting on today for item number 27, Council Bill 120708, is retained on the agenda. So unless there is objection, I will be postponing final vote on Council Bill 120708 to the November 20th meeting. Hearing no objection, the item is postponed and held to our Monday, November 20th meeting to ensure that we can have that final vote. And tomorrow we will reconvene at 10 a.m. and get into legislation. Colleagues, thank you so much. I know that there's been disagreement, some good discussion back and forth, but I hope what you heard in the end was a lot of common ground and people coming together and finding some solutions. And with that, I'm going to turn to my Vice Chair, Vice Chair Herbold.
I'm sorry, I just needed I appreciate that you gave the council bill number, but just in plain language, what bill are we not taking up tomorrow?
It is the bill that is in front of us that included all of the 121 amendments. So it's the actual 2024 budget adoption ordinance. So all of the amendments that we just made, usually vote at the end on the amended package. We're going to hold that for the 20th, and that's what we vote on the 20th to ensure all technical. Okay, thanks for the clarification. Colleagues, have a good night. Thanks for all your work and deliberative process here. Take care. The meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.